Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Planning and Development. For those of you who are not familiar with the building, initially, welcome to the meeting, welcome to the council. We're not anticipating having any fire alarms or tests. So if the fire alarm does sound, it's likely to be really rather than practice. If that happens, please leave the building by the nearest safest exit, which is likely to be that door at the back of the room. Or if it's not, it'll be the main entrance to the civic suite, which you came into the building by. And we need you to go to assembly point G on the car park, which is just behind those windows, and stay there until tonight's proper officer, Ms. Ali, says it is safe to do otherwise. Please don't just go home, however tempting it is, or to the chip shop, because if there is a safety issue and the fire brigade are here, they'll be looking for you based on the attendance register that was entered into when you came. So we need to look after the safety of the fire brigade as much as anything else. The first item of business is the apologies for absence of members who are away on official business. We have Councillor Jarvis, who's apologised and is substituted by Councillor Davey. Councillor Dervix, who has sent his apologies and is substituted by Councillor Poppy. Are there any other apologies? Members, are you happy to note those? Yep. And welcome back, Councillor Davey. Welcome back, Councillor Hobley. I both enjoy the rest of the meeting. Agenda item number 3 is disclosable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Councillor Watson.
It's not really a pecuniary or non-pecuniary, but I do need to declare that I am chair of Polesworth Parish Council, which includes Wharton. So for item 5B, just to make it very clear, I've attended a public meeting, remained extremely neutral, have not given a decision either way on how I feel about it. It was to get an idea of the public opinion. We voted as a council on Wednesday to put a letter in of objection, but I abstained from that vote. So just to make that very clear, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Exactly the same, but I'm not the chair, but I serve on Polesworth Parish Council. So in other respects, it's exactly the same as Councillor.
Thank you. Are we all happy to note both of those? Thank you very much. And the first item on the agenda is the minutes of the previous board held on the 9th of June. Are you all happy with that sign them as a true and accurate record? So thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. We go on to the planning applications, the first of which is application number 227 for land to the east of Hamshall Electricity Substation. This is a report to be noted with a recommendation for a site visit. Anything to add to your report?
No, Mr. Chairman, let me just run through the slides, which will obviously come up on the screen, which are larger versions of those that you have in the paper copy in front of you. The site there is outlined in red. Hams Lane is down here, and the Hamshall distribution depot is here on the other side of the railway line. Those members that know that vicinity. Faraday Avenue, which goes from the Hamshall to the A446, is along here. The existing Hamshall substation is here, and the redevelopment of the National Grid Centre is here. Lee Marston is about half a mile up here. See the site there next to the railway line, not quite next to Hams Lane, but the access will be off Hams Lane. A little bit more detail there, showing you the array, the containers, so where the battery storages will be kept, and the transformer and electricity substation down here, the access road, together with the sustainable drainage areas up here in the top corner. And then finally the landscaping scheme, which proposes quite a substantial amount of new tree and planting around the site. But as members can see, it's away from Hams Lane, and there's the existing corridor of trees along Hams Lane, which is left. And as the chairman said, the recommendation is to note the receipt of the application and to visit the site, and also a full determination report, Mr. Chairman, will be brought back to you in due course.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Members, thanks to Councillor Parsons and Councillor Heath.
Move the recommendation, Chair.
So, Thank you. Very efficient. Any other comments, members? In this case, it's been proposed and seconded that we note the report and have a site visit. See all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Go now to application number 155 to land south of Walton Recreation Ground in Walton. Lloyd Phipps, if I'm saying that properly, has indicated that to speak. You'll take the speaker's chair whilst Mr. Brown introduces his report. Mr. Brown.
Again, Mr. Chairman, let me just run through the slides. Site there is outlined in red on the edge of the village. The crossroads that members are probably familiar with, Alton Road is here. The Fox and Dogs is just down here on the right. The existing Red Mile development is here. Recreation ground here on the top right. And then that the road that goes up to the other crossroads in the centre of the village is there. Holy Trinity Church is there. Aerial photograph taken obviously with the Red Mile estate, which was under construction, and you can see the site there outlined in red. The parameters plan, which basically is the framework which the applicant wishes to follow with permission is granted, is outlined there, with the residential developments internally within the centre of the site, surrounded by proposed open space paths and planting. The access would be off Church Road, which is here, and as members can see, there's a potential future access marked down here onto the existing Red Mile estate, and pedestrian access in the bottom left corner down here. And then the access arrangements are there, which are just a little bit more detail of what I've been saying. I'll move back to that one, Mr. Chairman, and leave that on the side. Just one comment before you open it up, Mr. Chairman. The report summarises the applicant's documents. So some of the comments that you may see in the report are the applicant's summaries, they're not officers' summaries. And therefore the language that is used is very much that of the applicant and not of the officers, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Sorry, Chair. Far be it from me to correct Mr. Brown. I think he may have got his pulled across. I think it's the office rather than the Fox and Hounds. Is that But I apologise, Mr. Brown. I've got it wrong. Sorry.
No, so
You were right, as ever.
your correction's been corrected.
Absolutely.
Sorry, the Fox and Dogs is not there anymore. I think that's what. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I am impressed by local members' knowledge.
Well, not mine, but so.
Mr. Phipps, welcome to the meeting. My colleague will now explain to you the rules on public engagement.
Good afternoon. You've got 3 minutes in total to speak. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker and I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Do I need to push the button?
Yes, please.
Please.
Chair, members of the committee, on behalf of Walton residents, we strongly oppose the proposed housing development. The proposal isn't just inappropriate, it's actually in breach of our established planning frameworks, falling squarely outside the adopted North Warwickshire local plan and beyond the defined development boundary in the Polesworth neighbourhood plan. Walton has already absorbed a disproportionate amount of growth. Since 2016, we've had 5 developments added, over 270 houses. It's not just not sustainable, it's a cumulative overload. The government planning inspector in a previous decision concerning Kirby Close stated that Walton was already overdeveloped. The proposal also erases the green gap between Walton and our neighbouring settlements, contradicting Objective 6 of our adopted neighbourhood plan, which should hold the same legal weight as the North Warwickshire local plan in guiding these decisions. We're protecting our community and our unique identity through democratically established policies. Developers' so-called community engagement submitted as part of their application was flawed and unrepresentative. They used manipulative survey design and unethical dark patterns. This compelled us to conduct our own unbiased community survey, free from coercion. We received more than double the number of responses and found that nearly 90% of residents believe Walton is already overdeveloped and that this proposal would be profoundly detrimental to our village. These critical, robust survey results have already been submitted for your review through the Planning Committee. Councillors, our residents are exhausted. Our infrastructure is at breaking point. Our roads are unsafe. Healthcare is extremely strained. Our schools are under immense pressure and we have no nursery places. This development will deepen these problems. Wharton is not a blank space on a planner's map. It's a vibrant living community with a rich heritage, a unique identity and a profound sense of place. The local plan and neighbourhood plan that exists now are there to protect these essential qualities. Upholding them now is a test of whether we still believe in plan-led development. Councillors, this proposal is speculative and predatory. It seeks to capitalise on delays elsewhere in the region and to override the very policies that you've already democratically adopted. On behalf of the residents of Wharton, I urge you to reject this proposal, respect the policies that you have put in place and respect the legal framework of the local and neighbourhood plan. And please, I implore you, respect our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Phipps. Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? Councillor Parson?
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and get this one right. Having looked at our paperwork, there is quite a lot in there from the developer about the objectivity and fairness of their survey. I noted that, Mr. Phipps, that you refer to the dark nature of the survey that's there. Could you possibly explain that for us, please?
It's a method of digital design whereby people that design a survey make all of the questions compulsory, but don't give you options to select another option and then put in something that you'd rather say. So, for example, in respect of this survey, once you objected to the idea of the development, you were still forced to answer, well, what type of houses would you like? There was no going forward and saying, well, I don't want any of these houses, I just want to object. You then had to say what kind of houses that were there, and you had to then say, go through the whole survey with those kinds of questions. So until you got to the very end when you could add your own comments, then you weren't able to actually say what you actually felt about any of the developments. And I noticed that actually in their report, one of the first things that they do is highlight just one supportive comment of the, I think, 4% of people that responded of the 115, that they just said, oh, we just think that there's an opportunity that's well developed and we knew this was going to happen. Councillors, there's another 100 and odd comments in that survey that were not highlighted from people in this room saying that we don't want the development, and it was selectively used to manipulate this community engagement, if we can call it that. And just at the very top of it, they actually expressed that a sixth of people support this. I'm not sure why they've used the word a sixth of residents actually support this, rather than using their own graph showing that nearly 90% of residents are actually opposed to it. It's that kind of manipulative use of the documentation that they have, which we object to. We'd rather have an independent survey, and that's why we conducted our own. Residents could object and they could just finish the survey on one question.
Got a follow-up, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly outline where you get your knowledge of this from, Mr. Phipps. So,
I teach digital design at various different universities in the region.
thank you.
Councillor Watford?
Thank you, Chair. Laurie, is it all right if you just sort of expand a little bit on the access on Church Road, and could you just explain to the council a little bit about what happens already with the volume of traffic, the nature of the traffic, just so that they get an idea of, you know, what's going on already? I think that'd be useful.
Of course, councillors behind me, you'll see a whole range of people in yellow t-shirts. If they can just give a wave, they're at the back as well. This is our Speed Watch group. They monitor the traffic on Church Road and various other points throughout the village. As the road accesses approximately where that access point is now, that they're showing in the on the top of the diagram, we often record during speed watch sessions cars going in excess of the speed limit at that point. The speed limit at that point is 40 miles an hour. I don't have those figures to hand, but it's a considerable amount of vehicles that are constantly coming up there speeding. And whilst you can't see at the bottom left, the small roundabout, the small traffic island. Yes, just about there. Thank you. Cars actually treat that as if they're coming off it with no brake. So they'll treat that as a slip road. They're coming at it at 60 miles an hour. They carry on doing 60 miles an hour until the road bends round to the right. That's around getting towards the 40-mile-an-hour zone. But of course, they start to brake at around that point, and they're still doing well in excess of 60 sometimes.
We'll just follow up on that. And would the Wharton Speed Watch be able to evidence those speeding numbers?
We do have the evidence, and we'd be happy to submit them to the council. Council, it's a very dangerous road, already close to a children's playground at the recreation, and we'd like to thank the council that are providing us with some playground signs to go up as well. Of course, it's a small sign in a very large road, but thank you for providing those.
Any other questions last week? I just was like to take the opportunity to be clear that we're right at the beginning of the determination of this application, and all the recommendation for us to do tonight is to note and agree that we're going to have a site visit. There will be, I'm sure, other meetings when you and your colleagues are more than welcome to come back and more than welcome to tell us again what you told us tonight. If we don't have a substantial debate on the issue tonight, it's because of the way planning works, and members can't at this point express a preference for or against because we haven't got all of the evidence in front of us. But please don't take that as disinterest. It's simply making sure that we determine the application in the right way. But please do come back and see us again. You're more than welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
So, members, and thank you very much for your comment. Councillor,
Do you need to move the fact that you do a site visit, or does the paper allow for?
I was thinking that you might do that, Councillor.
I'll move that we go for a site visit again.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler and Councillor.
Yeah, I was just going to start the site visit. I think it'd be good for the board to actually go towards and have a proper look around the village so that they can understand how much building there is at the moment, and also the so that the board can see Wharton, the village, can see the race that we're talking about. You know, there's a serious accident on Barn End Crossroads the other day, so I think it'd be really important to do a site visit.
Thank you. Councillor Wellborn.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just having come back from Wharton about half an hour ago, we were looking at some fencing around Wharton Rec that we're going to put up regarding the parish. As we were there was a little lad come out on his bike from the park. The speed that the cars were coming down, how he got missed, was a miracle, really. That road is far too fast as it is, and another development very nearby would, in my opinion, seriously be worried about that.
Thank you.
If I can make a comment, Chair. Yeah. I have to say, I don't have a problem with site visit. Indeed, I'd recommend it. But I do find this process rather peculiar. In all my years on planning, I've never known a developer applying for a site visit, as it were. I'm sure it's happened, but more usually it is councillors who decide that they want to go on a site visit. So I do find this a little bit puzzling and wonder where this process is going. Is just the comment I'd like to make, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I take it as being the planning officer's recommendation that we have a site visit. But Mr. Brown, will you clarify that? Okay, members, any other comments? In which case, I've had a proposal and a seconder that the report is noted and that we go and have a site visit. I see those in favour. And that's unanimous. And I'm sorry, members of the public, sometimes it appears that it's very arcane as to how we go through planning applications, but it's all in line with the law and with the way we have to behave. That's as far as we're going to go tonight with this application for Wharton. As I said earlier on, we will have other meetings and you're very welcome to attend. Similarly, if you've got stuff to do and you'd now like to go home or to the club or to the cinema, you are more than welcome to leave us now.
Not the fox and dogs though.
You don't have to say the I'll give you- So members, we'll go back to the agenda. Before we do, I'd just like to draw your attention to the fact that we have a shiny new planning officer here for your entertainment this evening. Jacob Morgan was recently joined the authority. Be kind to him.
Shiny red face. But I mean, this didn't last long, did it?
Welcome. So members, we now move to applications number 108, 112, 166, 194 and 23. I think that's probably most applications I've had to read out in one go for a little while. For ABM Precision Engineering Limited or the site of ABM Precision Engineering Limited. Howard Smith has indicated he likes to speak or she likes to speak. So if you take the speaker's chair, please, while Mr. Brown introduces his report. Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you say, it's unusual to have 5 cases to be looked at together, but they relate to one particular site. And this site has already been subject to your attention at an earlier board meeting. At that time, 2 planning permissions were granted, as you can see from the report. One relating to a hard standing and the second relating to the use of that hard standing. And those consents are appended to the report for you to look at. 3 applications of the ones that we have in front of you tonight relate directly to those 2 consents. The lighting, the fences, and also the discharge of a condition, number E, as you can see on there. And there are 2 other applications on there to vary conditions. As it happens, it's the same condition on each, condition number 3 of those permissions. I suggest, Mr. Chairman, that the board takes individual decisions on each of these in the order that are in the report, rather than taking them en bloc, because there are planning merits for and planning merits against in respect of each of the applications, and an individual decision is probably better from a probity point of view. The first application, therefore, Mr. Chairman, is the discharge of discharge of a condition relating to lighting on the site. So if I can just run through some slides, get to. So those are the 2 consents that I was referring to earlier. The top plan shows the hard standing, which is the block here, and the red line, the long rectangle behind ABM, which is the building here, Coleshill Road being up on the top there. And the second application was for the use of that yard in connection with ABM, as you can see by the wider red line. Sorry. The application for the lighting is, as you can see there, along the southern boundary of the site. There are existing columns, 10 columns there, The proposal is to reduce the height of those columns from the existing 6 metres to 4 metres, and then there'll still be the 10 lights. In terms of the glare from that particular arrangement, that the plan there is, again, that's replicated in the papers that you have in front of you. The top of there shows the line of the development, and the line of the existing buildings is here, with the road in the top right. As you can see, Mr. Chairman, the reduction in the height of the columns led to the Annesley Parish Council saying that that significantly lessened the harm as far as they were concerned, and that's expressed in paragraph 6.5 of the report that you have in front of you. You're also aware that the County Council do not object. There are representations from residents in Annesley Hall, and that's referred to in the report. As members are aware, I mean, these circumstances, rather than refuse based on objections received, you have to look at whether or not there is a resolution through the imposition of conditions, and whether those conditions would reduce unacceptable harm. Conditions can't reduce completely all the harm, because lights will produce light, but does that, through the conditions, help in achieving a mitigation such that the harm might be mitigated and is acceptable? And those conditions, Mr. Chairman, are set out, as you can see, in the report, 3, 4, and 5 and 6. This is on page 5C36. The proposed lighting should be implemented wholly in accordance with the lighting plan, which you've seen. A maximum level of luminance for the light source of 0.5 lux. And as you see from the report, the county ecologists don't object to that, and neither does the Highway Authority. Each light source should be angled so to be parallel with the ground, so there's no upward inclination, so to prevent glare. And condition 6 is an hours condition, which you would normally expect to see, particularly in this rural location. As you can see there, they shall only be brought into operation between 7 o'clock in the morning and 2300 in the evening. So that's the first report, Mr. Chairman. And as I said, if you're agreeable, we'll deal with that one first.
Slightly slow, Mr. Brown, given that we have a speaker. Would you like to speak now, or were your comments related to the other applications, or was it to all of the applications together?
I would like to speak now, if that's okay.
In that case, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you.
My colleague will now explain the rules on public engagement.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll start the clock when you start speaking. I'll give you a reminder at the 2-minute marker. I'll stop the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you. But, the concerns of Annesley Parish Council are that we had a meeting where Mr. Chowdhury attended. I thought it was, oh, sorry. We had a meeting where Mr. Chowdhury attended, and to explain what was going to happen on the site, and it was to just be this building, the AMC, but and that the hard standing was only going to be for lorries that were coming in to deliver stuff, and that hard standing would be increased so that the lorries could turn around and then go back out onto Coleshill Road rather than have to reverse. Our concerns in that case were that the gates, if the gates are closed, the lorries have to stay on the left-hand side of the road and wait to cross a very, very busy road. We've had a number of accidents with the junction of Piper's Lane, and that was one of our concerns. We asked Mr. Chowdhury if that was all they were planning, and we asked if storage units were going to be installed. He told us that no, there was no plans for any storage units. And we now find that storage units are planned for this site. The concern is that will
You have
make
1
the
minute.
access. Sorry.
1 minute. 1 minute.
So it's just the access, it's road safety. Our concerns are because that is a really, really busy road both ways. And we have concerns about that road anyway, but adding to it with, if the storage units are there, the numbers that are people who are going to be using that site. And again, we have concerns about the intensity of the lighting. That would impact on drivers coming from Piper's Lane and the glare of the lights. I know you've said that they'll be, it'll be down, but drivers can still see those lights, and we're worried that's going to cause a lot more problems.
Thank you very
3
much.
minutes through.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? In which case, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson, you've indicated you'd like to speak. Would you like to speak now?
I
Or,
would
or
like to
back?
speak now. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm here as the local borough councillor for the Arley Whittaker ward, which includes Anstey Parish. I want to begin by stating that I welcome the original permission that was granted for the site to be used for car parking and support of the office space for the IT company and deliveries for the lorries to have safe turning space. It's really encouraging to see the development and the investment coming in our area, and I'm in favour of sensible and appropriate use of the land. However, I must raise some genuine and pressing concerns about the new and retrospective elements of this application, particularly around road safety. First, with regard to the proposed lighting columns, whilst I understand and appreciate that a lighting assessment has been undertaken and the report concludes that the lights should not dazzle drivers, I believe this is not sufficient on its own. This site sits in a countryside location, just 100 metres from a junction with Piper's Lane. This junction is already known as locally as dangerous and has unfortunately seen many accidents. Many have been fatalities too. We must ask ourselves, will this new development and addition of permanent lighting increase the risk at already problematic junction? That's why I'm calling for a full road safety audit to be carried out by our highways department or an independent road safety audit. It is not a matter of obstructing this progress, but ensuring that public safety and giving reassurance to our residents who live in this area, including those at Anstey Hall, that everything will be done to ensure that the safety of the lights will not dazzle drivers and increase accidents. Additionally, I'm concerned about the future impact of this development, particularly now that the garage on site that is currently on site has now been closed, and the local residents are understandably worried that this could open the door for further expansion of this storage facility, which would bring additional lighting, traffic and disruption, especially affecting the residents living nearby. Another significant concern relates to how vehicles access the site. Lorries and cars currently have to stop on the main road whilst waiting for the gates to be opened. This causes stationary traffic on what is already a busy and narrow stretch of road. Again, this raises serious safety implications, which should be included in the requested road safety audit. So I'm not asking members to vote against this application because I do support it, but I am asking that you consider a deferment, not as a rejection, but as a responsible step to allow for a thorough road safety audit to be carried out.
this will give confidence to the local community and show that we're taking their concerns seriously and help to ensure that any development proceeds in a way that is safe, sustainable and suited to our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Can I just clarify that you would like, if you like, D and E are recommended for deferral. Would you like us to consider deferring the other three items or just the lighting one?
Yes, please, Chair. I do believe that all of it should be deferred for the meantime until the full road safety audit has been completed. Just so that we can reassure residents that it is going to be safe to have the lighting columns at the 4 metres for drivers coming in. We did have problems with the farm that was just a bit further up, having a light on there, and that caused quite a lot of accidents. So we just wanted some reassurance that it's going to be safe, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, because I'm just looking at this site from the Google Maps, looking at my roadside. The lighting, as I understand it, is at the back of the site. So is the concerned traffic almost coming like from a fair way away and seeing it off to one side?
Yeah, so it's a very long lane as you approach like through from Anstey Junction all the way into Anstey Common. And it's quite a dangerous road. Cars drive very fastly along that road, and it's very dark, particularly like in the evenings. And we see quite a lot of accidents there. So obviously it does dazzle drivers when lights are there. There was a farm just a bit further away from ABM provisions, and that caused quite a lot of accidents. Similar sort of lighting. So I've just wanted some reassurance it's going to be safe.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm wondering whether some side shielding of some sort, to stop you seeing it actually.
Yeah.
I know you'll still see the glow, but you won't have necessarily the glare. But thank you.
Any other comments, members, or Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Chair. We're just talking about lighting at the moment.
Yes. But with the proviso that our speaker and Councillor Jackson have spoken across all of them.
Mr. Rouse going to go on to the other things. So just on the lighting then, I'm slightly confused because I thought Ansley Parish Council was more or less content. They said the harm would be significantly reduced with the lowering of the lighting, the dimming of the lights, and that diagram there shows that it's going to be very well maintained. And as Councillor Watson said, it is at the back of the building. So I find it really difficult to understand how it's going to cause problems, to be honest. It might have done in its original state, but I think quite a lot's been done.
I understand your comment, Councillor Bell. And I read the report saying that the Parish Council thought it would be better. I don't know that that necessarily means they are supporting, they just think it will be better. The other concentrations, I don't know if they support or don't, but I think our speaker is associated with the Parish Council, and so given that the Parish Council is speaking against, anybody else wish to speak? Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to pick up on the point that Councillor Bell has said. The Parish Council did say it would significantly lessen the harm, and that's where we obviously have come from. The County Council does not object, that's one of the reasons that have been expressed by Councillor Bell, and also the fact that the conditions are recommended. The conditions refer to hours, they refer to the maximum lux levels, not those lighting levels, and because, picking up on Councillor Watson's point, the actual cowling will be so that the light sources are parallel to the ground. In other words, they're down, and we can make that clearer in the condition, as far as I'm concerned, if that helps. In terms of a road safety audit, road safety audits are not needed for lighting, Mr. Chairman, and the County Council will not do a road safety audit for lighting. It's just purely access arrangements. I understand that will perhaps dealt with on when we deal with the access application for the fencing, but I'll come back to that one later. But in terms of the lighting, Mr. Chairman, I think the proportionate approach here is as recommended.
So can I just ask a couple of questions on the conditions, Mr. Brown? My understanding is that the looks measure doesn't change if you have more than one light. So if you have one light at 0.5 lux and another 20 at 0.5, the light is still 0.5 lux. It doesn't.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. As you can see on the diagram, that will be each light source being 0.5.
And in respect of condition 5, I think what you just said is that would include the degree of cowling.
But we can include that, Mr. Chairman, yes.
And Ms. Brown, on condition 6, we say between 7 in the morning and 11 at night. I'm not clear from the report the days of operation of the site.
Well, there's a lawful use on the site, Mr. Chairman, 24/7. When ABM were using it, there were no hours restrictions at all. And indeed, when the application was granted for the hard standing, no hours restrictions were applied at that time. So for this site, as a general industrial lawful use, completely unrestricted hours, 24/7.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Brown. What I was trying to understand, when is the site working and when will they need the lights to be turned on? Because I mean, I'm presuming they won't be working, for example, Good Friday and Christmas Day. And, you know, any degree of days when the lights aren't on is better than when they are. So it's really a question of, I accept there is an unfettered consent, but what we're looking at is when will the lights be operated? And I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if it was 7 to 11 any day the site is being operated, and when the site isn't being operated, the lights are not used.
I can accommodate that, Mr. Chairman. That's not a problem.
Councillor Wattles.
Thanks, Chair. The direct question to Jeff is, sorry, can you just clarify for myself and the members of the public a little bit more on why, if there's an example a bit further down as to, I'm not doubting you, I just want to clarify a bit further down, as Councillor Jackson said, where there's a problem with the glare on the lights, and if they feel it's going to be the same, why County Highways wouldn't do a survey? Could you just expand a little bit on that? Thank you.
Road safety audits are not related to lighting per se, so they will not do on any site at all on a lighting programme. That's the reason why the applicant here has gone to a lighting consultant. And if it was deferred, Mr. Chairman, we would have to go to an independent lighting consultant to see if they agreed to what's being said. We wouldn't go to the county council for a road safety audit. We already have their comments on the proposals.
Thank you for clarifying.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. If that's possible, then could we go to an independent lighting consultant for an independent audit, please, on the lighting, just so we can alleviate residents' concerns.
Councillor Bell.
Sorry, just going on to your desire to restrict it. It's just a question really. Are the lights there for security reasons as well as for operating reasons? Because if they are, then the applicant's quite likely not to agree to a condition where the lights are off at any point in the night, because it's not that area is not known for its lack of crime.
Fair point, Councillor Bell, but we're going to be turned off at 11 o'clock at night anyway.
Yeah, so yeah, okay.
Members.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Perch.
Yeah, I'm listening to the debate, and it was a bit of sort of dilemma here, but I'm of an opinion. I think if local members and local residents have a concern, and it only means a deferment and an independent lighting assessment, I can't see any real harm in doing that, and I'd like to move that we do that, Chair.
Before you do, let me just take a bit of legal guidance. Council being advised wouldn't go down this route. I'm presuming that we could either have an independent assessment ourselves, or we could ask the applicant for more information.
You can do this.
Are there any other routes that we go to get this additional information that's being requested?
No, it would be.
So either we do it or the applicant does it.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Finch.
Yeah, well, I would
Either of those.
either of those. Well, if we can get the the applicant to do it and redo it, and we're satisfied with that, then fair enough. Then, but if not, then when we would get an independent, I think. And as I say, I think if local members and residents are concerned, and they know the area better, then I would still like to support them. So I'll move that too.
Councillor Wapple.
Thank you. Just to go back on Councillor Phillips there, where he mentioned asking the applicants to do it again. Kind of feel like that's marking their own homework, and we've already asked them to do it again. So I think if we are going to go through this, I think it should be us determining that. I'd feel more confident if that's what we're gonna, that would happen that way. Thank you.
I hear what you say, Councillor Wapple, but the majority of information from the board comes from applicants, and it's standard procedure either way. We can do both. So I have a proposal for deferment from Councillor Phillips. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wapple. We'll clearly go to vote on that, but can I just in advance see if there are any alternative recommendations so that we can consider everything at the same time? Anything further to add, Mr. Brown?
Can I just make sure that, Mr. Chairman, that the deferment is for us to consult a lighting consultant independently, so that we can compare the two results? Is that what's being proposed?
No, I think it's a bit further than that, Mr. Brown. I think Councillor Jackson was talking about a road safety audit, focusing, if you will, on the lighting, but it was not really just to. I think it was broader than that, Councillor. Is that what your view?
The road safety audit was about the lorries and cars accessing the site as well as the lorries.
That, Mr. Chairman, comes under the second application to do with the fences, and I'll cover that then. But there is no road safety audit possible for lighting, full stop.
Or an independent lighting report. At the moment, the columns are 6 metres tall. I know you're saying that they're going to be pulled down to 4 metres, but again, any sort of lighting is going to dazzle drivers on that lane.
Okay, so look, I think we're going to get a little bit confused over terminology and where we're going with this. Councillor Phillips, if you'd like to amend your recommendation, where we defer for further information, I think it covers all grounds.
I can do that, Chair. That sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And are you happy to continue seconding? Thank you. And that gives everyone the opportunity to just determine exactly what additional information is involved and how to get to it. Yeah, are we all happy with that? So can I, if there are no alternative recommendations, can I see those in favour of the deferment for additional information associated with lighting and road safety? Those in favour? And anybody against? Any abstentions? So that's carried. That item is deferred. We now move on to the other, I think, applications. Mr. Brown, you want to talk first about?
Yes, Mr. It's the fences. We should first focus on access. As you can see, Mr. Chairman, the condition 3 in Paris 7.1 indicated what was granted permission for last time. As you can see, 7.2 proposes a variation. It is to propose the fencing along the site to be moved back from the highway and the gates to be removed. So the gates would be moved back into the site parallel with the rear elevation of the building.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
They would in fact be here. So in fact, there will be an open access onto the road. So there'd be and that would be wide enough for vehicles to come in and out without having to wait on the road. So the sliding gate would be moved back to here, as you can see where I'm moving it across the slide there. The highway authority, as you can see, have got no objection to that. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation is that planning permission be granted.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Can I just clarify the height? Because when I was reading the report, there seemed to be something about the lights, the gates and fences as fitted were higher than the original proposal, but this would regularise that to grant consent for the.
Exactly, Mr. Chairman, it's retrospective to regularise the heights as well as proposing the variation in location.
Thank you. I'm looking at the members who proposed the previous recommendation, you're doing the same here or something else, but councillor Hobley.
Thanks, Chair, sorry. I just wanted to say there was some concerns from residents about the gate opening in towards the road. Out into the road. And the developer has taken that concern forward, changed it to a sliding gate and then listened to the highways concerns to take the gate off. I understand how dangerous it is, and I think moving forward, this is the best outcome to have no gate at all. So I think I'm in agreement with this one. Thanks.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, if I'm reading this right, doesn't this satisfy the concern of vehicles having to stop on the road? It basically gets them off the road into that hard standing area to do a turn, and then if they need to go through a gate, it's further back.
Yeah.
That seems to satisfy that safety concern of HGVs having to wait on the road for the gates to open.
Okay. Yeah. So can I, if you all seem broadly content, so can I have a proposal? Councillor Fowler, you're proposing consent as printed?
It's that, yeah.
Thank you. And a second?
Safe.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's granted. Mr. Brown, we now move on to discharge conditions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've moved on a slight extra slide, so I'm not coming back. I won't refer to the slide that's on the screen. This, as I said, is discharge conditions. Two conditions, one landscaping and one for a delivery and service management plan. As you can see from the report, Mr. Chairman, we're still waiting for the county council on the second of those, the delivery management plan. And as you can see, as a result of that, we are recommending deferral until that is received.
Members, any comments? Councillor Humphrey.
I'll move that recommendation.
Thank you. Second. Any other comments, members? It's been proposed and seconded that we defer. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Is that all of them? Right?
No.
I'm conscious that we talked about A and B. And have we done E as well? Or
No, there's two more, Mr. Chairman. This is under section 9, the variation of conditions. It refers back to the matter which the parish council were talking about, and also Councillor Jackson, about the introduction of a new use on the site, container storage. And as you can see from the bottom plan here, the containers would be on the hard standing in the centre here. They're containers. You saw the slide before showing what they're like. Obviously, this then becomes, with the sliding gate here, this means that this becomes could be effectively a separate planning unit. And therefore, our view, as you can see from the report, Mr. Chairman, this is not a variation of the existing planning permissions. It in fact introduces a new use to the site. And that's the reason why we are saying here in the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, that effectively these applications are ultra vires. In other words, they're outside of section 73, and the application should be withdrawn. And if the applicant wishes to put container storage on the site, then you should submit an application, a full application under section 78, and we'll deal with it that way.
thank you very much. Can I have a legal opinion on that? Because in theory, the applicant could decline, in which case we need to reach a determination. So is it better that we determine the application or we await the applicant's pleasure?
It depends on what the board wants.
There you are, members. You have legal guidance. It is up to you. That's the first time I've ever heard back. So, members, the recommendation is that we ask the applicant to reconsider his position. Anybody have any comments? Councillor Redden.
Thank you, Chair. I would say obviously a change of use, add to Mr Brown's knowledge in relation to container storage, and from what the parish council councillor representative was saying, that is a big concern. It may completely change the significance of that, of the use of that piece of land. Are there going to be, more vehicle movements in relation to storage? What's the increase in the traffic?
what sort of noise will be generated. So I do think it would certainly be better to defer again to the applicant and see if they would put in a new application in relation to the change. Thank you.
Great. So technically, we are deferring. Yep. So your proposal is that we defer consideration and discuss with the applicant.
Yes, please, Chair.
Thank you. And a seconder? Thanks very much. Any other comments? In which case, can I see those in favour of deferral? Thanks very much. That's unanimous. I mean, we've done all 5 now. Thank you. As before, if any members of the public we have an application would like to go home, you are perfectly at liberty to do so. The board will now move to consider application number 586 for land 500 metres west of Camp Farm, Mayhill, Burley. Scott Johnson has indicated that he'd like to speak, so Mr. Johnson, if you take the speaker's chair, while Mr. Brown introduces his report.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, just to run through the slides, I apologise for this, it's not too clear where that site is. The Hurley Common is in top right. Kingsbury is over here. It's not that clear. In fact, the bottom slide is probably clearer. In terms of the actual layout and proposal, then clearly Knoll Hill comes down here. Camp Farm is here, as you can see, and Brickkiln Lane is the road that comes down, up and down through here. The rifle range is over here, I'll just, the site is, I'll show you some roads in a minute, Mr. Chairman, but the site is smaller. It's not contained totally by roads. Knoll Hill comes down here. There's the junction, the triangular route, which is there in front of Camp Farm. So the junction is here. Knoll Hill comes down to here. This bit, and then in fact Knoll Hill comes off down here, and the junction with Kingsbury Road, Tamworth Road, is down here, bottom left by quite some considerable distance. So this particular line here, and there may have been some misunderstanding here, this line here is not the line of Knoll Hill and Tamworth Road. That is some way short of that. In terms of, I've handed around two additional papers for you, Mr. Chairman. The first is we had a site visit last week, and there's a note of that site visit in front of you. Also, you'll note from the report, particularly section 6, that there are outstanding consultation responses. There's a second piece of paper which I put in front of you, an update of that situation. And you'll see there that there are still 2 outstanding consultations at the bottom of that particular piece of paper. And therefore, but the recommendation covers that, as the recommendation is to approve subject to there being no objections from outstanding consultations. I need to point out the green belt issue here, Mr. Chairman, because it's quite very easy to say this green belt and therefore this application should be refused. And as you're aware from the training that we've had on the green belt, and particularly after the introduction of grey belt, that is not a sequence and doesn't automatically follow on in terms of a sequence of thought process. The report concludes that this is a grey belt land in the green belt, and that's at paragraph 8.12. If members disagree, then I would like to know the reasons why and the evidence they have to indicate otherwise. That does not mean to say that the development should be refused or not refused. The next process to go through is to decide whether it's inappropriate development being grey belt land or not. And as members are aware from the complete, very lengthy training session that we had, paragraph 155 of the NPPF contains all the conditions relating to grey belt land. Again, our conclusion is that this is not inappropriate developments in the green belt as a consequence of that particular paragraph, and that's in paragraph 8.21. Again, if members disagree, they need to indicate why and the evidence they have to say why. It's not a question of just saying it's green belt, therefore it must be refused. And we need to have the reasons why. As a consequence of that, whether or not it's, as you can see from the report, a planning balance has to be assessed. You still have to do that, whether it's inappropriate development or appropriate development in the green belt. And the report does that in its latter stages. It's possibly, from the information that we've had and the representations that we've received, the main issues or the main impacts are likely to be landscape and visual impacts. And I've asked members to differentiate between the two. The impact on the landscape and visually what it might look like. In terms of the landscape evidence, then the applicant is saying there is moderate impact on the landscape. Our own planning consultant agrees and would not put it higher than that. So therefore, the evidence you have in front of you is that the applicant's consultant is saying moderate landscape harm. Your own landscape consultant, whom we used on the Forlongley appeal, and therefore who knows the area quite well, is also saying that that is moderate impact, no more. Visually, then clearly there is going to be an impact. We can't ignore that. But on what you have to look at is the mitigation that's being proposed. In this particular case, on this plan, and I'm sure you'll be told by the speaker that the old hedgerow lines are going to be reinstated. But in this particular case, what is key importance is the landscaping belt, which goes around the whole of the southern half of the site. There's an existing hedgerow down Knoll Hill, as members will have seen on the site visit. That has been enhanced, and the public footpath that crosses the site here would be diverted around the southern half of the site. There will be a double hedgerow either side of that footpath, and the hedgerows will be allowed to grow to 3 metres tall, together with individual trees throughout its length. Therefore, there will be a substantial landscaping change in character to the visual impact that people might see when coming up and down Knoll Hill. That is material, and that is significant. In terms of the balance then, Mr. Chairman, the harms like we've set out in the report at paragraph 8.71, at most, I consider the cumulative level of harm to be moderate. No more than that. Then on the other side of the balance is the need for renewable energy, energy security, and all the other matters that would come with that. And that carries substantial weight. Members will know that in all of the applications that we've had for the solar farms in the borough, each time the board has given that side of the balance substantial weight. And therefore, in terms of that balance, clearly outweighs the moderate harm caused by the issues that we've raised there. And that's the reason, Mr. Chairman, that the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, the planning office referred to 2 additional papers that are on your desk. Can I just check that you all got a copy and that you've had an opportunity to read them? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Johnson, welcome to the meeting. My colleague will now explain the rules on a bit engaged.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll give you a reminder of 2 minutes, and I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Hello, I'm Scott Thompson, Head of Consents Management for Ampere Solar Europe UK, chartered environmentalist and consents manager for Camp Farm Solar. Camp Farm Solar has so far taken 2 years to develop. We identified a grid connection opportunity at Lee Marston substation, and then a 6-kilometer radius was established around the point of connection to find the site. We eliminated sites that would not be viable where landowners were not interested in solar, and then where environmental and community impact would be too high. All potential options ended up being within the greenbelt, pursuing no other options. Our site at Camp Farm came up as the best viable site to take forward for this solar farm project. That being said, on its own merits, Camp Farm is a very good site for a solar farm. For example, there are no heritage, landscape, or ecological designations that can be impacted. There's no major flood risk on the site. The site can be accessed for construction and is actually by and large not well overlooked. Certainly, there are very few dwellings immediately adjacent to the site, and we can see the site does lend itself fairly well to landscaping to at least minimize landscaping visual impacts. After a successful and fairly straightforward pre-application inquiry, we progressed to holding a public consultation in 2024. I'd like to thank Kingsbury Parish Council and the local community of Hurley in particular for their engagement and input, which has been instrumental in shaping our design. We've been able to change and improve our design for the residents of Hurley and those living on Coronation Road in particular, after they invited us to their homes to see the views from their windows and gardens firsthand. We have engaged with the site's neighbours to help ensure proposals would be acceptable to them and make changes which are in line with the comments from the residents of Hurley. This public consultation, we reduced the size of the development proposed and greatly increased the amount and quality of the proposed landscaping. We've addressed comments from the various statutory stakeholders, including in particular transport, landscape, ecology, and drainage, which led to additional evidence, amended buffers, clarified drainage plans, and added yet more landscaping within the site. Very quickly summarize the need for Camp Farm Solar and what it has to offer. For the UK and the world as a whole, we want to help tackle the climate crisis and achieve national energy security. We want to help reduce the cost of living by bringing energy prices down, which solar will help to achieve. There are a number of benefits locally, which include a community benefit fund, which we predict to be £1.2 million in today's currency over 40 years, for the local community to use how they choose, such as local projects or perhaps subsidized electricity. We will plant over 4 kilometers of new species-rich hedgerow and over 200 new trees, including the restoration of historic hedgerows within the site, which will generate substantial wildlife and landscape benefits. Although we plan to divert a public right-of-way, part of the Heart of England Way, around the perimeter of the site, we feel this will be an overall improved recreational resource. We will move the right-of-way out of flood, furnish the route with a level surface, landscape it extremely well with new hedges and trees, and after we are decommissioned, leave this as a lasting positive legacy of the project. We appreciate there have been local objections, and we have done our best to respond to all local concerns. I think it's important to address food security. Government and many others now recognize that food security is not the same as domestic food production, especially due to the impacts of climate change, the potential for periodic national scale crop failures from extreme weather or disease, etc. And genuine food security is now dependent on the capital markets.
Thank you, John. Members, do you have any questions for us, please? Councillor Hobley, please.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know if it's, I just can't zoom in, because I can't see it very clearly on my iPad. But is there anywhere on the application where sprinklers are installed, as recommended by the fire chief?
I see, she's very good. Not sprinklers. We have an outline battery safety management plan produced, and there will be 2 tanks as required by as recommended by the National Fire and Rescue Service. One inside the substation fence and one outside. It can be reached from 2 different directions as well. So if the smoke is, the wind is directing any fire smoke one direction, and therefore, any being access to one tank, they can access the other.
Councillor Parsons?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your exhaustive report. It was very thorough in 3 minutes. I wonder if you mentioned how you did look at all the sites. I wonder if you could give us any examples of sites that you managed to eliminate basically before you arrived at this site.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a farmer study area, as you can imagine, and this happens in most parts of the UK. There's a lot of urban development, which clearly, you can put a solar farm on, a lot of woodland, and quite a bit of flood risk. So, you're down to less than 50% of land automatically. Then you start looking at where there are small sediments, and you start putting buffers around those sediments. You put buffers around water courses, buffers around certain woodland as well, because there's a lot of bat potential around woodland areas. And you start looking at, where you're on the edges of settlements, where you are substantially overlooked. So a lot of the sites that we found, mostly to the south of Hurley, sort of to the south and east of where Green Marston substation is, were at the edges of villages, and therefore not really suitable because people would have been directly overlooking the solar farm. Beyond that as well, at the same locations, there were very long and convoluted routes to try to get a grid connection, and it just would have been too expensive. It would have been making the project non-viable.
Thank you. Councillor Watson?
Apologies, I was going to try and say nothing, but so as many of my colleagues will know, I have a significant concern around lithium ion and firefighting it, because you simply cannot extinguish it. So you can only manage it, which is what the National Fire Chiefs Council think. But parking the battery storage piece, there's also a significant concern around solar panels. Actually, solar panels generate DC electricity, and they don't stop generating. So if in the event of an issue or a fire, they continue to generate. Now there is new firefighting methods actually. It's like a black spray that you put on it that stops the solar panels generating. this is obviously a significant size, the site. And apologies, I couldn't see it in the report, and Jeff will comment, but from a fire management perspective, what's your thoughts around, or what's your plans or intentions around firefighting? Not so much the battery storage, we've been through that and we understand that. You've talked about the water supply, etc. But what if the solar panels? What if there was an issue with those? What would be the planned fire management plan, I guess?
So that hasn't entered into the planning or consents realm yet, so there's no specific addressing of that in our submission. Having said that, you know, we are very proactive and really focus more on fire prevention in putting it into our management or operational management. So the key thing that we tend to do is regular surveys of the solar panels, and you can use drones to do that, which are very effective at identifying if there are any anomalies such as hot spots on the solar panels, which basically well in advance of them potentially becoming a fire risk, you can say, right, we don't like the look of that, we can replace that. So you replace the panel well before it becomes a fire risk, and therefore prevent fires from happening in the first place. And I think this is sort of new and emerging practices, but it's certainly practices we plan to adopt.
And if I may, Chair, so can we have some assurances that actually you'll use thermal imaging cameras on drones to identify those risks long before it happens?
Yes, we can confirm that.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions from me, if I may. The report tells us that you've articulated that there is a local and a national need for the installation of source of renewable energy. Can you tell us what that local need is and how you've identified that?
No, it's not quite what I was referring to. I'm saying there are local benefits. I think in order to try to, what's the word I'm looking for? To sort of corroborate the two, or to get the two to marry. We recognise that we can only export to the national grid, and so obviously there's a conundrum in that, you know, local people can't benefit directly from a solar farm because of the way the grid works. That's one of the rationales for offering a community benefit fund. Sort of like saying, okay, we can't subsidize your energy directly, you know, we can't give you cheaper energy, but we can give you a benefit fund. If you don't want to use it for a subsidized tariff, which you can set up through various cooperatives, and certain companies set these up for communities. It's usually by postcode, so they'll say, right, you want to use what energy company you want to use, but if you enter your postcode, you'll get a tariff that's only available to you, only available to those people living within a certain radius, say, of our site. So those can be set up to give subsidized electricity just to people of however the community wants to define the area. But if you don't want that, then use it for something else. Use it for a project that, you know, is closer to the community's heart and what they want to achieve.
Sorry if I wasn't clear enough. I wasn't referring necessarily to what you had said, but to what the report tells us. And the report tells us the applicant has indicated there is a local and national need. I was just trying to have clarity on that, but I'm grateful for your response. The second area I want to talk about was landscaping. And to understand if you thought that you had gone as far as you reasonably could, or if you think there's any further landscaping that would assist to mitigate the impact of the proposals.
Well, I don't think our intention is to stop where we've, what we'll put the concrete proposals we put in place. As you can see, we've left substantial gaps for future landscaping. So there's a market that's opened in the sale of biodiversity net gain units. Now, just to get further context, our consultation design had 3.2 kilometers of hedgerow proposed, which would have had trees intermixed. We've since then increased it to 4 kilometers of hedgerow. You know, so it'll cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to, you know, to put those in addition to the tree belt. You know, so it's many hundreds of new trees that we'll be planting as well. So our intention really, and I can see the potential, and certainly as a chartered environmentalist, I'm always trying to leave room for potential to grow, for further hedgerows to be planted. And I'd like that to be done through leveraging biodiversity net gain. But in addition, there's that substantial wetland area you can see next to our battery and substation area, which I'm very keen that we find the opportunity to open up that now long since buried watercourse. It's in a pipe, and that pipe clearly links to the open watercourse that's in Kingsbury Rifle Range. I don't think it ever should have been put in the pipe, but I think you should get that out of that pipe and open it up as a wetland feature.
I'm generally quite interested in what you're saying there, and I think the application will benefit by having those items included within it. Is there anything you can do to provide something that enables us to understand that? I mean, I absolutely accept what you're talking about is future development as opposed to initial development. But that help people understand the application in its entirety.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I mean, I think there are, so we've now broken it up, as you can see, into 4 distinct fields. And there's potential we could deliver the additional hedgerows, break it up into the 7 distinct fields. So I suppose, I mean, I think the wetland creation is not unfortunate what we're doing. I think the wetland creation aspect of it is going to be quite a bit of additional work. And we're not going to have an adverse effect on, runoff or flood risk in any way, shape or form. So it would be asking a bit much, and I think it'd be better to try to achieve that post development. But certainly, if success of the application were contingent upon more hedgerows, I think we probably could offer those.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? In which case, thank you very much indeed. Who'd like to start the debate? Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Chair. As an elected councillor for many years, member of this board for many years, I feel increasingly at a disadvantage. I'm not a professional, and it's not easy to count professional advice. It doesn't stop me having a view, even if that view is contrary to our professional advice. We've seen a steady flow of similar applications within our green belt over recent years, to the extent that cumulatively they feel almost like a blight on our countryside. And it also starts to feel that that steady flow of applications for solar farms like this has an increasingly random feel to it, as if it's a succession of opportunities that people are grabbing as they go along. And what I don't see, unless it's hidden somewhere, is whether there's any strategy for the green agenda across North Warwickshire that requires us to have this capacity here, this capacity there, or that capacity there, or it's just, look, there's a space there, we can put some there. It feels to me increasingly like that. There's no clear strategy. So I'm also starting to, I haven't got a grip at this grey belt, green belt yet. And I'm sure it's big. I've tried to listen to all the training, but it still feels sometimes like a matter of convenience as to whether something is designated grey belt or green belt, depending on whether you want to support it or not. I think this report understates the visual impact of this application. And I think this report understates the cumulative harm. But I'm not a professional. I can't come up with a sort of brilliant series of phrases and words and justification. I just feel it's wrong.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Hayfield on that. Certainly the sentiment, yes. I, as a local member, I find this difficult to support, and I don't wish to be a NIMBY. I think, like so, in general, I think the move to solar panels and things is a good move. Most of the ones we've given permission for have been discreet and they've been out of the way. This sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. To say that you go down the old hill, that the road off it and it looks like it moves off at the bottom there, but it doesn't. It sweeps round to the right, and that's all one big field, and that sits on top of that field. So it gives the impression that that's sitting there isolated, but that's there at the top of the hill. And I certainly agree with Councillor that we seem to be well blessed with people wishing to give us some solar panels and battery cabinets all over the place. I just find this very difficult to move. The visual impact on the village. I mean, this is the size of the village. And appreciate they've moved it off Brickkiln Lane, off early common there. And, but as I say, I think you're still going to be looking down on it. I think it's still the visual impact. And I find it difficult to support for that reason, Chair.
Thank you. Choose amongst yourselves. I didn't see which of them is first.
I'll be quick, yes. Thank you. Councillor Hayfield's articulated very clearly my thoughts, much more clearly than I could have expressed them. But what he said is exactly how I feel. I think the visual impact is going to be absolutely horrendous in terms of the residents of Hurley and of people coming from Kingsbury. I've also got concerns about the construction traffic, both for Hurley and again coming through Kingsbury. But while there are outstanding objections from the Flood Authority and from Highways, I'm very uncomfortable about supporting this at the moment. I'd like to sort of perhaps defer a decision on it. That's just how I feel at the moment. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. I just want to go back to obviously there was a site visit. However, as I recall, it was done quite quickly and only very few people could attend. So could I suggest actually we have another site visit? I know that's difficult, but Mr. Chair, I think it would be useful to understand the scale, because it's easy to look on a map like that when you're stood there looking down the countryside and you get a feel for the scale of it. I think that might be useful for myself certainly.
I'm content with having so, but I think we already have one. If the item doesn't proceed tonight, then I think there is, but I don't think it would be reasonable to defer simply for a site visit, because that has been there. But if members are wishing to defer for other reasons, as suggested by Councillor Jennings, then I think using some of that time to have a site visit would not be unreasonable. Mr. Randall, Councillor Fowler, then Councillor Ridley, then.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's just really to agree with my two colleagues on my right. I was unfortunate not to be able to do the site visits, and this is the councillor over there, that it would be helpful to see early for ourselves and get a better picture of the land spread as well. So I would very much welcome my opportunity to have a site visit along with other members that did not have the opportunity as well. So I'd welcome that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. I was one of the ones on the site visit. It was the three Graces, myself, Councillor Bell and Councillor Gilmore went on the site visit. It does make a massive difference when you're actually there and you're looking at the site. I have to concur the fact that it is our precious green belt and it is a massive site. And I understand the need to generate our future energy through renewables. But when you're standing there and you're looking across this green expanse of our green belt, which is so precious to us here in North Warwickshire, it really does make you sort of stop in your tracks and have a big deep swallow. I have to congratulate the applicants in a certain, because they have moved. Our Skylarks again. I've got a great passion about this, and I noticed that there is a Warwickshire County Council ecology objection, and I'd like to know a little bit more about what that objection is and how that can be mitigated. So going forward, I would like to see more mitigation. The public right of way has been moved from the centre of going across the centre of the field to the outside. I think there is a little bit of wet ground there, and I think it's a 10 metre. I think it's a 10 metre walkway around the outside of the field now. And again, when we were on site, it appears that there will be tree planting, there will be large high hedges. And there will be sporadic tree planting within that hedges. But again, I'd like more information about what exactly we're going to plant and how that's going to sort of like help the landscape mitigation going forward. So I'm still concerned about, we're still awaiting County Council Highways, the Flood Authority. It would be absolutely fantastic to bring our BNG forward by actually introducing some waterways, because then you could attract we've got our skylarks already, but you could attract all sorts of different birds and mammals and whatnot if we could actually get the water from that's been piped underground back onto the surface again in a specific way. So I think that perhaps, you know, is something going forward that there can be better mitigation. But again, you know, it is hard, and I concur with all of my fellow councillors to think what we sacrifice, and that balance, that planning balance that Mr. Brown talks about is very difficult to come to terms with. So I would say defer for more information on these that we are still awaiting for some information in relation to highways. I'd like to know more about this ecology objection and how that can be mitigated, how we can perhaps add more BNG into it to help with our screening, with our trees, with the waterways certainly. And very much I would really encourage, and I don't blame anybody here for not being able to go, because it was a short window that we had prior to it coming to board. But I would encourage as many councillors as possible to actually stand there where we three stood there and looked across. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was Councillor Hogbin and Councillor Weary, is that right?
Thanks, Chair. I'm a big fan of green energy, as we know from our previous time on the planning board. But I do have to agree with Councillor James on this one. I'm happy to second his recommendation. With regards to flooding, we've seen before in this chamber, not all the relevant information given to board, especially about flooding. I believe, as Councillor Ridley was saying as well, there's still a lot that's maybe outstanding that needs looking at. So I'm quite happy to second my colleague's recommendation to defer to wait for results of flooding and county star bird. Skylarks are the birds. Skylarks. That's right. Thank you, Chair.
County bird.
The birds.
Councillor Weary, that's all.
Yes, just briefly say I agree with Councillor Ridley and everybody else. I think we need to wait for the additional information. Going back to Councillor Hayfield's point, would it be normal for council to have a strategy on green energy? And if so, is that something that you're planning to do?
We have a local plan policy, Mr. Chairman, local plan policy LP 35, and that is effectively our strategy. We do not allocate sites. Clearly, there's with the present local plan we don't. Clearly, there's a local plan review coming up, so the opportunity to allocate sites is within that plan. At the moment, we have policy LP 35, which is supportive, subject to. And clearly that policy can be reviewed in the local plan review when we get to that stage later on in the year. Just one point, Mr. Chairman, to clear what Councillor Ridley has said. The paper I've just sent round, the county colleges does not object. It's paragraph 1.2. Now clearly we can give a lot more information, Mr. Chairman, as to the reasons why that objection has been removed. If the deferment takes place, we can, as Councillor Ridley says, give a lot more information on that. But the formal position is the county colleges has not objected.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. I agree with you, Councillor Waffles. I think Councillor Watson is going to answer the point raised in his role as chairman of LDS.
Correct, yeah, it's just to come back on Councillor Weary. Yes, our intention is to have a policy on renewable energy in the new plan.
Councillor Waffles.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to concur with all of what my colleagues have said. Whilst we are waiting for that precious information, it would probably be common sense then to book another site visit, would it? Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? So, members, we've had, I think, a proposal that the consideration of the issue is deferred. And that's for further information from County Highways, the local lead flood authority. I'd like, if you're happy, to take up Mr. Brown's comment that we can consider further what the county ecologist has said, given that we've just got that information in front of us tonight. Members, I'd like to think about adding a couple of other bits to that as the debate have considered it, because we, in the question and answer session with our speaker, there was a discussion over landscaping and additional work that may be done over the life of the application. I'm not saying at the beginning, but to understand the entire proposal. And before we go to vote, I'm sorry to drop them in, but section 816 of the report talks about there's a demonstrable unmet need, or that the special condition requires there to be a demonstrable unmet need. And the answer seems to be that that is evidenced by the fact that a lot of people have applied consent. Does that qualify as demonstrable unmet need?
It depends on how many sites are being lost within the region.
But the demand for planning consent could come from a variety of reasons. It doesn't necessarily indicate need.
No, it can't.
It can.
Obviously, I agree with you, yes. But there is no definition on what is required. So the local plan would establish them.
And particularly given that we're told in the report it's identified the local and national need, the applicants themselves, so they have not indicated.
No.
So I think, members, I'd like further a better understanding of how we can articulate need. And that's something I'm sure that the applicant will be able to work with as well to establish what I needed. And particularly given what the report is saying, it's to meet a legally binding target of net zero emissions by 2050. Where are we up to as a nation? What do we need to achieve, and what is our part within it? But allocated sites within the green belt, accepting what the grey belt is, I'd like to be clear on what the unmet need is, as opposed to simply a lot of people have asked for consent. I'm sure there is more to it. You know, I'm not so green, if you will, to imagine that the unmet need is simply because people have asked for consent. There's more to it. I'm convinced of that. I'd just like us to have the evidence of it in the same way as we would put other people to an articulation of evidence. So I think what we have is a proposal for deferment for further information from county highways from the local flood authority for some more understanding from the county archaeologist. Something further on what the applicant may or may not be able to do over the life of the development with landscaping and a wider understanding of need. Anything else? And then if we are deferring, that we have a further site with it. Anything else anybody would like to add? And the proposal seconder, are you happy with that adding out of what you've proposed? So, given that, can I see all those in favour for the reasons articulated? And that looks unanimous. Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, I know the applicant's representative is here, but you'll be able to read what we're looking for and the timescale. Thank you very much. Members, we now move to application number 549 for Fifth Meadows, Tamworth Road. We have two speakers, Courtney Marshall and Darren Clark. If they would like to take the speaker's chairs while Mr. Brown introduces his report.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just run through the slides before I speak. The application site there is outlined in red. The retaining is over here on the left. Cliff Hall Lane is to the north, which you can see here. The Tamworth Road comes into Kingsbury. The M42 is roughly about where I'm pointing now, and Kingsbury south of that. As you can see, it's this rectangular piece of land between the road and the river which stands above the River Tame. There are existing residential properties, as you can see on that particular plan. This is the plan that was approved at appeal. As you can see here, with the single pitch at the back, and you can see that there, together with the bunding and the access arrangements that come in off the access here on the main road. together with the planting. That was allowed at appeal. And this is the current proposal, as you can see, to add the extra vans here in the same locations as the existing ones approved, to retain the access route in, to retain the bunds and the planting along that particular area. One or two points I'd like to make, Mr. Chairman, right at the beginning. You'll see from the report, Mr. Chairman, that the appeal decision, the July 24 appeal decision, is a material consideration of substantial weight. Now that has been copied in full as Appendix B, and I can't say enough that the fact that should be given substantial weight. Particular weight is given to two areas in that appeal decision. I draw attention to paragraph 26 of that appendix, because the inspector found this to be a sustainable location. Nothing has changed since that particular appeal decision. None of the services in Kingsbury or facilities in Kingsbury or Cliff or Tamworth have changed, and bus services haven't changed. There's nothing to suggest that that conclusion should be revisited. In the second one, paragraphs 30 to 34 of Appendix B, and particularly paragraph 34 of that appeal decision, where the unmet need weighs significantly in favour of the approval. That has not changed. That remains the situation. The council has not published any further document in relation to Gypsy and Traveller's needs, and we have no sites which we can offer as alternatives. That has not changed. That's the reason why that appeal decision is given significant weight, substantial weight. I know that members were talking about grey belts and the difficulty they had with the utilisation of grey belt land in the green belts, but you have to look at that particular issue in relation to this particular site. That is indicated in para 9.9 of the report, and the consequence of that is in 9.16, where you have to look at the conditions under 155, as this is grey belt land in the green belt. And all those matters, Mr. Chairman, lead to the recommendation to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Welcome to the meeting, both of you. You're very welcome to be here. You'll probably be surprised to hear that my colleague will now articulate the rules of public engagement.
Good evening. If you don't already know, between you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So if you're sharing it, I'll stop you at 1.5 minutes, and then the next person can start. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Okay, so to the chair and members of the planning community, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to express my full support for the ongoing development at the Willows, a property that has been subject to both public scrutiny and regrettably discriminatory attitudes. The residents of the Willows are a family who simply wish to live peacefully, securely and with dignity, just as any of us would wish to do. They are not strangers or intruders, they are a part of our wider community. These individuals and families with the same hopes and values as any other residents, a safe home, a sense of belonging and the right to build a future for their children. I've had the opportunity to see the work being done at the Willows, and I can honestly say it is thoughtfully designed, well-maintained site. The development reflects care, pride and respect for the surrounding environment. It is not an eyesore or an imposition. It is a respectable dwelling that enhances, not detracts from our village. As a council, I urge you to consider the human story here, not just the paperwork or the prejudice. These are people trying to create a stable home peacefully, legally and with dignity. Let us not be a community that drives people out, but one that welcomes and supports those who wish to live respectfully alongside us.
Thanks, carry on. I don't really need to say very much because we've had Mr. Brown's presentation and the officer's report, which is an excellent report and well set out. And your speech there was very, very good. So just to very briefly recap, we have a consented traveller pitch granted on appeal. Some additional family members want to be able to stay on that pitch. So there's 2 additional statics. And as articulated in the officer's report, there's no additional sort of impacts or cumulative impacts from that.
hence the recommendation for for approval, beg my pardon. And then again on the supply of gypsy traveller pitches, that again has been strongly articulated in the report. So we would respectfully ask that you all support this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much. Members, do you have any questions for our speakers? No questions, then. Thank you very much indeed. Members, Councillor Watford.
It's not a question, it's just a comment really, just to say how passionate you came across and thank you for your time on that. Thank you.
Members, any other comments? I'd like a bit of legal guidance before we progress. In the last application, we were talking about the demonstrable unmet need. And I'd like to understand again, if you will, how we have evidence demonstrable unmet need. Because I get the same thing, that the evidence appears to be a lot of people are applying for consent. And we have to put that into the context of the plan, which said a minimum of 19 pictures will be provided. I can't say anything in the report that says exactly how many have we provided, and a calculation of what that demonstrable unmet need is, as opposed to simply a lot of people applying for consent.
They are.
But does that indicate demonstrable unmet need?
Local plan, I believe we need to do that. So in considering that, until we have that in place, we can't quantify what the need is and how many pictures we need at the moment. So
we don't have a demonstrable unmet need. We have a view that it is that, but we have no evidence of it.
that is correct, yes.
Mr. Brown, draw our attention to section 26 of the inspector's report. I'm grateful for that, but it starts by saying the site would accommodate a single additional household and no evidence to show that this would have any unacceptable impact. I think the inspector was talking about a single pitch. That's what he gave consent for. Is it reasonable to extend that beyond a single pitch? On page 131.
Yes.
And whilst we're at it, if we look at the second part of paragraph 27, granting plan permission for this development would not set an irresistible precedent to be followed in consideration of any future proposal. So I understand exactly what I'm going for. I'm just trying to identify where is the need. And I think I have a general view. There's clearly an element of me, but what I'm trying to do is set that in the context, and I absolutely understand what section 34 is saying. We set out we'd have a box and we haven't done that. So,
Yes.
you know, I don't think this is clear one way or the other. But it was that I was seeking guidance. And if you're not comfortable to give of that guidance, or you need a bit more time to prepare for that, then I absolutely understand, because this is a detailed issue, and I do think the board needs some legal guidance over where we're going. And Councillor Bell, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Slightly in support of what you said, because in paragraph 35, Mr. Brown referred to the inspector's report. Paragraph 35, it was recognised there that children were part of the family, and indeed that two of them were over the age of 18. And yet it was thought was a single household to be adequate at that point. So nothing's changed since then. That the age of, the fact that there were two, like, children who were adults, part of the family, was part of that decision at that time. And just while I'm speaking, the inspector also set out a number of conditions for that field to be met. And my question is, some of those were pre-occupancy conditions. It's a genuine question because I don't know. Have those conditions been met before we start thinking about any other application?
Mr. Brown, can you give us any guidance on that?
Oh, not immediately, Mr. Chairman, no.
Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've got a very clear report here from Mr. Brown in terms of the planning situation. I'm not clear. Is there any sort of independent legal advice that supports you mentioned the legal situation, and I think for me, I'd like some independent legal guidance on where we stand with this, rather than saying no or yes to this tonight. I would again perhaps like to defer it so we can get some independent legal advice. So I don't want to say no to it straight away tonight, but I do feel that it's more than just a planning issue. I think that we need some legal advice on this. I'm not saying it very clearly, but that's my proposal. Is to defer for some independent legal advice.
Thank you.
A question, please, Chair. As I understand it, these 2 extra places are for the 2 oldest children. To give consent to this, what about the 2 younger children that are getting older? Will this effectively open the gate for them to put in an application for the other 2 younger children as they reach the age of majority?
Need time to consider it.
Any other? Councillor Plus?
Yeah, it's something that cannot be moved, isn't it? I mean, we start with the recommendation inspector to 1 lot, and then we move to 2. Yeah, and whereas it's by no means unusual for individuals over 18 to still be living with their parents these days, and many of us know that to our cost probably. But that is a fact of life. But it isn't normal that we can decide, oh, right, hang on, I'm going to build another premises, as it were, on my property here. That has to go through a bit more of a revision. So it is difficult, and yeah, it's. I do think we need. Clearly, there is a lot of weight for approval, but I think there are still a few I's to dot and T's to cross in this one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Watson?
I'm right in thinking that I appreciate what you're saying, outside, but I don't think we can, speculate that if we open the floodgates, it might be 1, 2, whatever more, because we've got to take it on what's been asked for now, haven't we? Not what could, should, or would, or whatever. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think we have to focus on what's been asked for now. Is that correct? Thank you.
Councillor Ridley?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the speakers for outlining, and certainly it is the human aspect that we need to look at. But again, in my eyes, it's again a greenbelt conundrum. Just as we've got pressure from solar farms, that sort of thing, and industrial parks and housing estates and everything. This is again a pressure on the greenbelt. And from what the inspector had said, it was just a one-off. I understand again human stories and that things over time change. But if we do look at the legal aspects about our local plan, our review of the local plan, our gypsy and traveller policy, and how that needs to be honed and refined and made the best it possible can be for all parties. I say, if we're going to go down that route, would it be best? Our speaker said it's not an eyesore or an imposition, and that it's been laid out nicely. It would be, I think, very valuable to go and look at the siting of the homes within the greenbelt, see how it sits,
And that would give us a little bit more of an informed opinion to be able to take it forward, I think. I really do think that I'm passionate about site visits. I do really think it makes a difference actually looking at it rather than on a screen.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Rowland?
I would agree with the site visit. I'd quite like a response from Mr Brown about Councillor Wapple's question around whether we do just look at the application rather than making assumptions about what you think people will do in future.
Councillor is absolutely right. You have to consider the application in front of you. That's your responsibility.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Watford?
Yeah, I suppose I'm just being devil's advocate here as well. You know, we are going to be nationwide looking at our gypsy and traveller policies, as we are aware. We're going to be looking at our local plan and just thinking, you know, being ahead of the game by having one more site that we can boast when we do look at what our numbers are. When we've already got one here that we could just expand a little bit. I mean, that could be, you know, quite a positive, seen as a positive from a, you know, forward thinking council. I'm just being devil's advocate here and just thinking of what it could be.
Just being
Thank you.
devil's advocate, that sounds like speculation as well. Councillor Hartley?
Thanks, Chair. I'm just in agreement with Councillor Ridley about a site visit. You know, I think it's quite an important one to have a site visit, really, to see the scale of it. Sometimes, you know, like you say, on these pictures, it's very, very difficult. And when you've got residents turning up to a planning meeting in support of their, you know, fellow residents, I think let's just go out there, make an informed decision, and I'll second the deferment for a site visit. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Watson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I agree. I think a deferment is probably the right answer for this. I think to address the concerns that have been or the questions from the legal perspective of what's in the report. But also the other thing, and I know Mr Brown couldn't answer the question, I'll be quite interested in have the conditions been met? Because we often see planning applications where they almost get brushed aside. So I would like to confirmation that the conditions of the original application have been met.
I think as well, most of the conditions on the inspector's consent have been carried forward to this recommendation as well. So they sort of talk to each other. Any other comments, members? In which case, I think what I've got is a proposal from various people for deferral. A, for a site visit, B, for legal interpretation and an understanding of unmet need, and C,
Conditions.
Sorry, I'm not on the back there. Is there anything else that I'm not got? So it's those three areas. Can I see all those in favour of deferral? And any against? That's sorry, one against. And any abstentions?
Sorry, just can we clarify that includes the site visit? Did you say
That's the first thing I said.
Thank you.
So that's correct. We are deferring for site visit, unmet need, conditions and legal guidance. Thank you. Members, we now move to application number 161 for Meadow Park and Wasting Lane. Technical, I think. Blake Woodward has indicated he'd like to speak. Mr. Woodward, if you take the speaker chair while Mr. Brown introduces his report. Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I'm going to do is show you two plans. Firstly is of Meadow View itself, the residential property here at the front, with the three existing buildings. This one is a caravan, the two existing buildings, the caravan and the application building at the back there. And then the second one is a diagram or a picture of the actual cabin itself. So I'll go back to that one, Mr. Chairman. I've got nothing further to add to the report.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Welcome to the meeting. Just to maintain the routine, my colleague will now explain the rules of public engagement.
Good evening. If you've already forgotten, I'll remind you, you've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker that you've got 1 minute left, and I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. The mobile home subject to this planning application has the sole purpose of providing independent accommodation for the applicant's son to live in, whilst he helps to run the small holding and agricultural land associated with the family house Meadowview Farm. The mobile home is located within the residential curtilage of Meadowview Farm and is used in connection with the family home. There is no separate access, parking or garden for the mobile home. The mobile home is subservient in scale to the main house. The applicant is happy to accept the planning condition recommended by officers, which would ensure the building remains in ancillary use. The mobile home is located within a group of existing buildings and structures to the north of the site. Officers have comprehensively assessed the potential for any harm to the openness of the greenbelt, and we support their conclusion that due to the single-storey nature and modest scale of the mobile home, there would be no impact on the openness of the greenbelt. Mobile home is also constructed using timber cladding, which is an appropriate material for the greenbelt and countryside setting. It is not the intention of the applicant to secure planning permission for a new dwelling on the site. The applicant wishes to allow their son independence whilst he helps to work on the small holding and are only seeking temporary planning permission for a period of 5 years, after which the mobile home would be removed. No technical objections have been raised and officers found no harm in terms of neighbouring amenity or impacts on the public footprint. There are also no conflicts with any greenbelt, countryside, landscape, heritage or design policies from the development plan or MPPF. The building has now been in this location for a number of years, and it is important to note that the use of permitted development rights or installation of a caravan act under the statutory definition could be utilised without needing planning permission that would result in similar or even larger installations. The applicants have sought to ensure the mobile home is as unintrusive as possible, to ensure that it's a temporary building as set out in your officer's report. In conclusion, the applicants are seeking temporary planning permission for the retention of the mobile home, which would allow their son independence whilst he is currently living and helping to run operations on the family small holding. The mobile home would be used in connection with the main family house and not for any other purpose. We fully agree with the conclusions of your professional officer's report and respectfully request that the committee agree and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions for our speaker? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. You've indicated that it's been there for 5 years already and you're asking for a 5-year extension. I guess my question is why 5 years? So at the end of 5 years, is there a plan that obviously is going to be removed? But why not just go for a permanent application, I guess?
Yeah, it's suit the needs of the son now. So obviously we know how life changes. 5 years is seen as a reasonable period in terms of his age at the moment. Within 5 years it won't be required and then it'll be removed. It's just to suit living situations now. Obviously within the residential curtilage you can use the family home. Within 5 years it won't be required, so it'll be removed. Thank you.
Have you been the applicant's agent for a little while, or is this a new appointment?
New appointment.
So are you aware that the applicant submitted a lawful development certificate in 2024?
Yes.
So what has changed? The lawful development certificate would have been a permanent dwelling in the greenbelt. Now you're telling us that you only want a temporary one for further 5 years.
Well, from my understanding, obviously, like I said, I'm quite new to this, but the applicant is just the son's living situation, which more of a temporary thing, no permanent. It wasn't required to be permanent.
And who is in occupation of the 6 berth caravan that's on the site that Mr. Brown referred to in his opening comments?
You repeat that, sorry.
There's a 6 berth caravan on the site as well, isn't there?
Yeah, that's just used for storage purposes and it's not habitable. So, if it was required to be removed, that would be removed. This is the intended living accommodation for the son.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Thank you very much indeed. Members, any comments? Members, look, from my perspective, I am confused here. We've had a long period of this temporary home. We had an application last year to effectively create a long-term permanent position, which, because of the technicalities, wasn't progressed, and now it's another period of 5 years beyond which the agent assures us it will be removed. I'd like some clarity of what's going on, because the report makes it quite clear that if we were to look at a permanent development, then we would require very special circumstances. And that may well be possible to confirm. But I'd like to understand, are we looking at regularising this into a permanent use or a temporary use, and some clarity over what will happen? I'd like to, the report deals in 8.10 with the Longley neighbourhood plan. I'd like to understand a little bit more as where that goes, because the Longley neighbourhood plan is being reissued. I think we saw earlier, I think this month, a new neighbourhood plan is now ready for consultation. I'd like to understand, presumably we're talking here about the existing one and how that will change to the new one, because ordinarily we'd be giving some weight to the emerging plan as well as to the extant plan. So, member, as purely a member, not as chairman, but I propose deferment until we can have greater clarity. Councillor Parsons.
Yeah, I share your confusion, Chair. I'd like to know what sort of guarantees we have that the premises will disappear at the end of the 5 years, as it is set out here. If it's been there for 5 years, then surely it would be better to grasp the nettle and to consider, a proper and permanent application. I appreciate that's the applicant's privilege, not mine, but yes, I'm against qualms about agreeing with this as it stands, certainly.
Any legal guidance whilst we're here?
Not at the moment, thanks.
Thank you. Anything to add, Mr. Brown?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments, members? So I propose deferment. Will you seconding, Councillor? Absolutely, yes. Are there any alternative proposals? In which case, all those in favour of deferment? And that's unanimous. Thanks very much. Mr. Brown will be in touch with you regarding the deferment and how we take this forward. Okay. We now move to applications of 21 for Hornsford Sports Junior Football Club and for recreation grounds. So we'll take the speakers against the application first. So that, I believe, is Louise Charter, who's joining us on Zoom.
No, I'm here.
You're here. Welcome to the meeting. If you take the chair while Mr. Brown introduces the report.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I intend to do is to go through the slides and add a bit more to the report. Slides here. The application site there is edged red. The site that we're talking about right at the beginning of the meeting, the ABM site, is up here, top right. Same road as coming down here in the Pipers Lane junction, roundabout here. The Annesley Hall development, as you can see, is here, and there's some additional residential properties just next door as well. The access is off the road, and it comes back here to the sports site, as you can see there. And this is the existing pavilion with the car parking area in front down here. The storage shed, the storage containers which are referred to in the report are here. The aerial photograph isn't very clear, but the plan shows you where we are. This is the existing pavilion, as you can see, as the report indicates, dating from the 1980s. The proposal is to, as it's effectively refurbished, effectively replace it with a larger building in the same location, same footprint. The car parking area is here. The drive coming in, as I said, is here. The former bowling green is here, and Annesley Hall properties are over here on the left. And then the actual elevations of proposal are shown there on the plan. I will go back to that plan, Mr. Chairman, because that's probably the most convenient one. There's no objection in principle here. Clearly, the application is to refurbish, to provide better changing facilities. So as in fact, they could be brought up to the modern legislative requirements and also the requirements from the governing bodies, the governing sports bodies. Excuse me. And members have seen that in other instances throughout the borough, where there has been have been similar proposals. The club room is causing the issue, as you see from the objectives letters set out in the report. And this is the possibility of what might happen to the use of that club room, because at the moment there is not such a facility on the site. The club room is here, and you can see it's quite a small proportion of the new building. And in fact, there's quite an extensive porch in front of it, so there are very limited openings on this side of this elevation of the building facing Annesley Hall residents, which is indicated in the porch is some distance away. So I'll just make those 2 points to start with. And secondly, the existing building has no conditions attached to it. It's dated from 1980, has no conditions on it limiting opening hours or how it can be used in any sense. And therefore, this we've taken the opportunity here, as you would expect us to do, and as is usual in these particular situations, to actually look at conditions. See in fact to mitigate any adverse impacts so that they become not unacceptable in planning terms. The environmental health officers have been consulted, they've not objected, and they're comfortable with the conditions that are imposed or recommended to be imposed if plan permission is granted. And those recommendations, conditions, Mr. Chairman, sorry, are 3, 4, and 7 of the recommendation. Condition 3 is to limit is to define the use which the club room can be used for. 4 is the opening hours for that particular club room. As you can see there, not continue beyond after 11 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays and 10 o'clock on other days. And then condition 7, which is a pre-commencement condition, pre-occupation condition, I should say, is that's a requirement for a noise management plan, which would look at worst case scenarios, in other words, to set out the noise environment situation, such that then we can go back and put condition 3 as to the type of activity that could be used in the club room. But from my point of view, Mr. Chairman, that's the proportionate way forward. I don't think there's a refusal reason here based on adverse impact on residential amenity. And as members are aware, you should look at the possibility of conditions before you actually refuse. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. You've heard this. But
Good evening.
Good evening.
You've got 3 minutes to speak. When you get there, when you've got 1 minute outstanding, I will remind you, and I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
My name is Louisa Tutor, and I'm the chairperson of the Annesley Hall Management Company. And as such, I'm here tonight on behalf of the 16 families who live at Annesley Hall. The 2 key objectives I wish to raise tonight are about the site access and safety due to the increased activity and traffic this application will generate. As stated on the planning officer's report to this board, the site is located via a private access track, which is owned by Annesley Hall Management Company and therefore the residents of Annesley Hall. There is no written record of any formal agreement or document that gives third parties, including the council, unfettered access to this private track. The access from Coles Hill Road to the gate of the playing field is on private land. It is not suitable for the increased traffic that this will be generated by this application. It is tarmac for the first half and the rest up to the sports ground is just a gravel track. The access track is not maintained by the council, and yet the council is recommending approval for this application for even more traffic to use this private track. Therefore, it is unreasonable for the council to not be responsible for maintenance, because otherwise you're letting the private landowner maintain the track for which you, the council, are suggesting approving more vehicles to use. The applicant has not consulted nor sought permission from Annesley Hall Management Company over the use of the private access of our land, particularly as this application will increase the number of vehicles using the track. In addition, the increase of vehicles will endanger children, adults and pets from Ansley Hall, who should be entitled to use their own land without fear. There have already been incidents of near misses as vehicles using the track do so at considerable speed. Coming off that Coles Hill Road, you've already heard about the issues with the Coles Hill Road near that Piper's Lane. This isn't just residents, it's also impacting on the dog walkers in the community who use that track as well. If this Planning and Development Board is minded to approve this application, then the council has to address the two issues. One, the danger to residents and pets of Ansley Hall that will be generated by the additional traffic. This could be done by putting traffic calming measures in place. And two, the maintenance of the access track to be taken on by the council or indeed be adopted by the council. This could be addressed by added conditions to the pre-commencement conditions, as it all needs to be sorted out before the work begins. Ansley Hall Management Committee is a reasonable group of people and has indeed coexisted with the current use of the sports field for many, many years. And it is this application that will increase activities on the sports field and thus introduce more vehicle traffic that will endanger residents and pets of Ansley Hall and increase our maintenance costs of the private access route. Therefore, it's not unreasonable for Ansley Management Company to ask this Planning and Development Board to address the two issues that I've said. Should the issues not be resolved, then Ansley Hall Management Company reserve the right to and may regrettably have to look at ways to protect our land through, for example, restricting vehicle access to the private access track. Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions, first speaker? Councillor Holden.
Thanks, Chair. What maintenance is it going to require to, I'm fully aware of what the track is. So what is it that the management company would be asking for?
What we need is for somebody to sort of take on responsibility. We are putting the gravel track itself has tremendous potholes and bits like that. We need gravel put down for that, but also the tarmac bit at the moment, with the increase of traffic since the football club have taken over with the ground, we're starting to get little potholes, particularly where cars join onto the tarmac bit. So it's about that maintenance of that bit of the road. It's about the maintenance from the Coles Hill Road up to the gates, just because otherwise it could potentially cost us an awful lot of money to maintain that bit of road for the additional traffic, which we're not making the damage.
Councillor Hazelwood.
Perhaps that's put it in context here, to help you understand this. The report says that the facility's been there about 50 years, which is clearly well before your buildings were converted and everything else. So your development was built with that already there. Have you had any real cause to complain about the?
We have on several occasions had to complain about, I have to say, it's particularly when we've had the cricket season open. So there have been events there where the car park didn't take that many people. So people were literally parking all on our drive, all on our grass. So we've had to put a fence up to stop that happening in future. We've had to, then they were another time, which was only, I think it was last year or the year before, it was a major cricket tournament where people coming from all over the country, they were having to park up and down that road. Now, we've had discussions about the Coles Hill Road before. It is chaos if people park on the Coles Hill Road. It's just not safe. And people, because it's a 50-mile-an-hour zone, just where our turning is, people are coming off there. It's quite trees all around, you can't necessarily see it. People suddenly slam on the brakes to turn. And this is part of the problem as well. That again, we've had discussions about Piper's Lane, the accidents there. I fear we're going to have accidents there at our gates now, where this is going to happen.
So your concern about this application is there might be an enhanced use of the facility?
Yes.
Yes.
It's going to be. Oh, sorry.
Well, there's going to be more traffic. That's why there's increase of the car parking space. Has been made like. In direct response to your question, as Louisa has explained, we've lived alongside the use of that building all these years. Although there have been instances now and then, we've taken it on the chin on that. But with this application, that's going to get worse, particularly as there's nowhere where it indicates that that's a private road. So you've got cars that just come and speed down that track. And there have been instances where residents have tried to remind people to slow down and have almost been knocked down. So that's one of the other issues, the lack of recognition that it's actually a private track and private access.
And thank you for that.
Councillor,
Thanks, Chair. Just a bit of clarity, really. A little bit confused. So if you went on to talk about the speeding, but then also about the, sorry, I can't turn around. And then about, maintenance of the road. So I'm not sure, just to get in my head, whether if you would be accepting of the proposal if the agreement was to support the maintenance
And traffic calming.
Okay, so that was the part that I wanted to understand, because obviously it was a bit confusing, because I was thinking if you maintain a road and put tarmac down, surely that encourages more speed.
No, it is about both things. It's about maintenance of the road and traffic calming measures so that they can't speed on that. It's not a long bit of track, but they come down it, it's a bomb down. Okay.
So in principle, we are not opposed to the application, as long as those conditions are addressed, we'll be content.
Councillor Houghton.
Just thinking about what's already in place already, those of you who know Coleshill Road will know that it does go to a lower speed limit a little bit further down the road. Obviously this is completely with highways, it's not with borough. But do you think that would be but if we could move the speed
Further up the road.
further up, you know what I'm trying to say?
I do. I totally agree.
If we could move the reduction in the speed limit closer to the site, because I mean, I've driven in and out of it fine. I don't think there's a problem with visuals, but the cars themselves. So I mean, that's something that maybe could be considered by highways, but I don't know if that's something that would be put in as an objection borough-wise, but I'd have to check.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just pick up on a point that you made around additional cars and additional things? Because if I'm looking at the Google Map image at the moment, I'm looking at the plan. I don't think there's an application to increase parking spaces. It looks about the same. So I'm just wondering what you think there would be.
They wanted to use the bowling alley, which apparently they have taken that bit out. They're going to rearrange what's already there. However, where the bowling green was, it was very overgrown and lots of vegetation, which they have already cut back. And presumably that's why they've realised that it's not necessarily a good idea to try and build that into the car parking. But now it's been cut back. We spoke to the guy who was cutting it back, and he said, "Oh no, I've been instructed I need to do this every couple of weeks." So what we're saying, okay, they might not actually be making it a car park, but by the fact that they're keeping it cut down, cars will be able to park on it.
Okay. I'm just wondering whether it's an intention of additional use.
And it's the frequency of it as well, because at the moment we have training on a Tuesday afternoon for the Tuesday after school for the children, and we have matches on a weekend, and that's no bother. And during the cricket season, they come and they play games, and they have an evening where they train. However, with the new proposal, they're going to have more teams. They've already made more football pitches on the site. So they're going to have more. So it's not just the children, it's going to be more. So that's going to be increased usage. So we're going to have a lot more traffic, a lot more of the time.
Thank you. And my understanding, though, they have to make these improvements in order to compete in the league that they want to compete in. Sorry.
But we don't have a problem with the.
Councillor Humphrys.
I'll wait until the debate.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, I was a bit confused because you said that you were worried when there are more cars around that they were parking on your Grasson Drive, and yet you don't want them to provide any more car parking spaces.
It's not that we don't want them to provide any more parking spaces, it's the amount of people who would be there at that time.
Yes, but surely if there's going to be increased traffic, it would be better to keep them off your drive by providing extra, if they're cutting down what used to be the bowling green, so presumably cars will park on there, I would have thought that was a good thing.
It's not about the necessary, oh, sorry.
The issue there is that there'll be more frequency of cars driving down that access road. And that's where the danger, because we have children that come out, pets who come out, they are in danger. There's a risk that they could be knocked down. So that's the issue, is the frequency of the vehicular traffic along that access track.
And we've already put measures in place to stop them parking on the grass, our grass.
Any other questions, members?
Bit of a chicken and egg situation though, isn't it? If you've got the parking, you're gonna have the traffic. If you
It's
haven't
not the parking we're discussing though. Our issue is the access
yeah, but
and the safety.
if you have the traffic calmers along the road, that's going to prevent the speed of the traffic.
On the track,
So
yeah.
it doesn't matter then whether you have
No,
more or
and
less
it's
parking.
It's because that would be the key thing. It's about the amount of cars that are going to be using our track, which is on private land. We are having to maintain it at our expense when actually there's going to be more traffic because of the different usages as is going to be. We're not saying there's suddenly going to be, instead of 50 people arriving in 50 cars, there's now going to be 100 cars. That's not the issue. It's the issue that we'll have 50 on a Monday, we'll have 50 on a Tuesday, we'll have 50 on a Wednesday, we'll have 50 in the morning on a Saturday, we'll have 50 in the afternoon.
So
on a
you're
Saturday.
saying that the calming measures
Would slow them down as they're coming up the track so that they're not endangering anybody else, because there are not just Ansdon Hall residents, we have lots of people from the community who like to just go and walk around there, use that as a starting point. Lots of dog walkers use there, and they do park on the drive, but they're never a bother.
So the only two things you want are the calming measures and the road maintenance.
Yes, that's what we're saying. That's why we're saying we don't want this application. We're not saying we don't want the building to go ahead. What we're saying is we want you to acknowledge that you're going over a private land. Both the applicant and the council, they're going over private land, and so actually we need to be supported in providing you with making sure that it's safe for everybody.
And someone's maintaining it.
And
putting the
somebody is
calming
maintaining
measures
it. Yes. Yeah.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, you own the track,
We own the track.
but
Yeah.
do they have the right of way over it?
There's always been sort of like a gentleman's agreement, but it's never been formally written down.
So you could potentially.
We could potentially put, yes, we could potentially put a gate at the end.
Reluctantly, so would
Yeah.
that not provide?
But we don't want to,
No, but-
because
Just for
we
the
don't have a
avoidance of
problem
doubt,
with this, we don't
members,
have a
land
problem with the
ownership does not,
using
is
that
not
that
always
access.
part of planning consent.
No, but you could restrict use to that drive.
We could.
As a
And
way of
cause
pressuring them
chaos.
to do what
And
you want
cause
to do.
chaos on the road, yeah.
Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Chair. Similar to Davy and Jens, I was thinking along similar lines, private road, some traffic calm measure.
Yeah.
My thought was, well, the club is actually using your private road.
Mm.
You mentioned gentleman's agreement, could be some sort of conditional, something put in formal that actually maybe thrown in, maybe a joint partnership of maintaining the road. So both benefit from it, from the private and them using that area. So everybody benefits even with the extension of those things, especially as we mentioned about increasing into the lead. Would that be possible through you, Chair? Would that be possible to have a discussion with them, see about doing a joint venture?
Just some guidance, Councillor.
Thank you.
These things are possible for the two parties to talk to each other about and agree. Land ownership and the use of that land is not the subject that we can opine on. You can ask the parties to talk freely, but it could not form part of a planning consent.
I think through you, Chair, I think that's what I was trying to say about talking to each
We
other.
never had a conversation. And I think, but the point that we're also trying to make is that if you agree to this, you are saying it's okay to have extra cars coming on our land.
But it would, we wouldn't be saying anything like that. We would be saying they have planning consent for the extension of a clubhouse.
But to have extra, but the result of that would be extra cars coming on our land.
Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, sorry, can we have some clarity on this access business, please? So Are these residents entitled to put a gate up and block the access to the club?
Again, all we're looking at is planning consent for the extension to the clubhouse.
Okay.
That's the question that the board has to address. Now, you may think that some of these things are worthy of the parties talking to each other and resolving. But that's getting into a discussion we're going to have later. Councillor Davies?
So we could agree to the extension of the facility and they could put a gate up to prevent anyone from getting onto it.
I think we're straying into the debate.
Yeah.
So any other questions from our speaker? In which case, thank you both very much indeed. Our next speaker is Mr. Paul Ryan, who is with us. Mr. Ryan, if you take the speaker's chair. Mr. Ryan, welcome to the meeting. For the avoidance of any doubt, my colleague will explain the rules on public engagement. You may feel that you can chant along with her as she does it.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Okay, thank you. Trying to push this on.
Yes, please.
So, good evening, chairs, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Paul, I'm the architect for this particular job. I'm here on behalf of Portrush Junior Football Club to ask for your support in approving the application to extend and modernise the existing clubhouse at Ansley Common. The project is fully funded with the majority of funding coming from the Football Association, or FA, and is aimed at bringing the current facilities to essential modern standards. The existing building has fallen into disrepair and is no longer fit for purpose. Without investment, it risks becoming unusable, unstable for the community, and they end up losing a vital sports and social asset. The proposals have been carefully designed in line with the FA requirements. These are not luxury upgrades. These are fundamental improvements needed to provide safe, inclusive facilities for young children, teenagers and grassroots sports. The aim is to support local youth football, the cricket club, and enable wider indoor activities for the community, such as martial arts, yoga, local knitting club, that sort of thing, so it can be used by the community as well. I want to be clear that there's no objections from Warwickshire County Council Highways or Environmental Health. The site is actually a private sports ground and is not open to the public for walking dogs, etc. The site is separated from the nearest residential properties by over 160 metres of quite dense tree boundary. Despite this, there's a small number of residents have raised objections, many of which appear to reflect opposition to the existence of the sport facility itself, which is what we could see from the objections we got. Many appear to be not the extension of the actual building itself.
1 minute remaining. The
clubhouse historically serves as a licensed community venue, used for club functions, birthdays, community gatherings. The proposals do not seek to change that, only to restore and modernise what was once a thriving hub. The facilities must be able to generate modest income to remain sustainable in the community. Without this, it will decline once again in the local area, especially its young people will be worse off. There are no current conditions or restrictions in the use of the building. While we appreciate the committee's desire to reassure residents, we would urge you not to impose constraints that limit community benefit or make the facility financially unviable. This is about ensuring long-term access to sports and wellbeing opportunities for young children and the community, something it sorely lacks. Respectfully ask your support in improving the application and helping us bring this much-needed facility back to its full use, benefit of the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've clearly just heard the conversation that we've had.
Yes.
And I appreciate that you are the architect as opposed to the applicant.
Yeah.
But from your understanding of the applicant, would they be happy to meet the residents to try to resolve this issue?
Potentially. potentially sit down and have a discussion. Obviously, I've listened to some of the comments that were made earlier. Obviously, there is in existence some kind of agreement for the access to the property, and the sports facility that was originally built and provided by the local coal board has been there for I think around 50 years, and existed before the actual Anstey Hall was converted into residential. The Anstey Hall also has a gated access into the property, so the area that they were talking about really is at the sort of front access road of the property, which obviously is in their ownership, and they're free to use and do whatever they like. But obviously the site itself has its own gated sort of facilities and I assume gardens and different things. So we've also proposed within, so we're not increasing car parking at all. The car parking is there and marked out as is on our drawing as existing. What we have done is added in some cycle storage so that maybe it encourages people to cycle from sort of the local areas. We've also added in potentially some EV charging points if people have got electric vehicles to make it sustainable as we move forward. And also a bit of a drop-off area. So to limit cars and the amount of cars that come in and out, because although there are potentially a number of vehicles coming to the site for the football matches, a lot of those are parents potentially dropping off the neighbours to play their games, and then they will go off home and come back and pick them up at a later time. So we've looked at, I guess, a little bit, the only way I can say is a little bit like the airport, where you go in and you've got your drop-off point without the horrendous charges, that they can drop the children off and then kind of continue out and leave the site. So that does, to me, limit the amount of parking spaces that we've got, adequate car park spaces. During the week, I don't think the building really is used that much. I think the idea is then to bring it into the community, to open it up for the wider community use for whatever hobbies or clubs there may be.
I'm sorry, could I just take you back to my question?
Sorry.
Are you happy to talk to the residents?
Yes, potentially, yes.
Thank you. And I'd just like to understand that the proposal, I think, is that you're not looking at any increased hard provision of parking spaces, but there was a suggestion I heard that during specific events like the cricket that was happening, that there is an inadequate supply. Are you proposing to continue things like that cricket event, or would it simply be your other activity?
Although the cricket will remain, I don't think that there is as much cricket as there was previously. It's more of the juniors football team. So it's from ages 5 to I think 15, around that sort of that would use it.
So are you saying that for ordinary purposes car parking is adequate, but you
car parking, yeah,
but you could foresee other issues where on an occasional basis it's not?
Yeah, I think the car parking that we've got is adequate. What we looked at. We did originally look at potentially extending the car parking, but at the moment we're looking at, because it's all grant funded and they've raised it from majority of the FA and some other sources, they may not have the funds to do that, and potentially if in the future that was something they wanted to consider, that would be a separate application.
Thank you. Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned, I think the report acknowledges that the facility was going to be via the coal board. There were no conditions put on its formal conditions put on its use. This planning application is proposing a number of conditions. Would you like the opportunity to comment on those, and whether you feel they're needed or not, and why?
I personally don't think they're needed. I think it's predominantly a sports ground, and that's what it's being used for local children to play football. Maybe enjoy some cricket. The cricket club is there, and the opportunity is for that to grow, to provide. And I live in the area, so and I've grown up in the area as a child, and I think we really lack in that area sports facilities that are usable for potentially offering something different to the children rather than hanging around on the streets and doing things maybe that they shouldn't be doing. So, and I think that there needs to be an element to be able to allow this to sort of grow a little bit to make it sustainable. Because if they can't make the building sustainable in terms of bringing some kind of income from the building, whether that's selling cups of coffee, cups of tea at match days, a little bit of food, something like that, then the building falls into disrepair again. And then the kids lack the facilities for the future. So my concern is, and I think this is a concern that's shared with the client, is that this may come with lots of restrictions on that we can't do anything after this time. Their worry is that, for instance, they have an awards night for the children, and they make a bit of an event of it, and then all of a sudden that at 10 o'clock, which the kids may well be bedtime, but that they've got to shut everything down because they're going to risk getting a complaint from the neighbours. The other side of this as well is that there is some distance between the club and the residents. Majority of windows and opening are facing out towards the playing fields or down to the sort of south of that drawing. And so that very much limits the amount of noise or disruption or anything else, even down to lighting. And the club are looking at whether they can raise some funds to thicken up the hedgerow or the tree lining that is on the sort of the west border, so that reduces that further. So I am concerned about what restrictions are brought on this premises, because previously there was no restrictions and the members used it as their cricket club, their football club, etc., and had parties, birthday parties, events and everything. Not big events, but just community sports events. On odd occasions. We're not talking about recreating a local social club that's open till late hours every night, and every weekend there's music, lots of noise and things like that. But it's allowing the client to be able to expand the facilities, and certainly from the sports aspect, and it's not restricted, and certainly not restricted by the residents or controlled by the residents that are neighbouring.
I'm sorry to go back to this, but we do need clarity on this. Are you aware of the conditions that are proposed to go?
I'm aware of the conditions that were proposed by planning.
And are you in agreement with them?
And I did go back to planning to say that I wasn't necessarily in agreement with the conditions.
So these are not agreed conditions?
I think it was more down to the times that they're restricting. So, weekends being a busy time for football clubs and everything that goes on, that there was very much a strict restriction on what they could do. And also the schedule of what the building would be used for, that the client's concern is then if they got the local knitting club that came along and said, could we use your facility to facilitate our club, or the local model railway club, that all of a sudden that schedule will change and they may have to come either back to planning or come back to a revised schedule that may take a bit of time. And in the meantime, that sort of local community group go, well, actually, we'll go here rather than, because we can't wait that long.
So I just need clarity. Are you in agreement with the conditions or not? It sounds like not.
Not entirely.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, guidance.
One or two things. First of all, improvements to the access drive would be outside the application site on third-party land, and you could not impose conditions, traffic calming conditions or maintenance conditions. That's a matter, as has been said by several members, that's a matter for the two parties to agree, and therefore that's outside the scope of this particular planning application, as you have made quite clear. I certainly don't suggest you go down that route. In terms of the conditions, they're mainly precautionary. And environmental health officers have advised on the hours. That's the reason why the hours are there. I think the most important condition here is the preoccupation condition on 7. This means that the building work can go ahead. It's preoccupation, it's not pre-commencement. And therefore we're asking for a noise management plan, which would include an assessment of the ambient noise levels, in other words, the existing noise levels, both at night and during day and when matches are taking place. And then add into that, as members are familiar with assessment reports, in worst case scenarios. In other words, noisy events taking place in the club room. That will give this then a series of triggers or thresholds by which we can then look at condition 3, which is what activities we might agree to. The activities that's been suggested tonight are perfectly acceptable from a planning point of view, no issue with that at all. I suspect very strongly condition 3 and the schedule will be related to what comes out of the noise impact assessment. And I suspect very strongly we'll be looking at thresholds or maximum figures which should not be exceeded, and any activity that exceeds those figures should not be allowed. That's, I think, what we will be looking at, Mr. Chairman. So I understand that they're new, and that the applicant obviously considers them to be onerous with small o, but I think they are required as a proportionate and reasonable measure in this particular circumstance.
But do we have a legal requirement, Mr. Brown, that the conditions we are imposing are agreed?
You can impose the conditions, Mr. Chair, pre-commencement conditions, Mr. Chairman, are the ones that have to have the agreement of the applicant. As you can see here, the pre-commencement ones are not the subject of concern from the applicant. Pre-commencements are 5 and 6. It doesn't prevent you from still imposing those conditions, because the applicant can still then appeal against those conditions. But the intention is for pre-commencement conditions to be agreed. And as you've heard, the pre-commencement conditions are not an issue.
Members, I'm going to open this up to your views, but it strikes me that there is an issue here between the applicant and the objectors that could be resolved by discussion.
Yes, exactly.
We cannot intervene, as Mr. Brown has agreed, in terms of the land ownership issues, but clearly members may wish to take a view of where this will go. Now, I don't think anybody, certainly not me, has a concern over the development and enhancement of a community facility. And I think we would all wish to see that. But it would be normal for us to get to a position where people are broadly in agreement and an understanding. But for the rules laid out, we can't intervene in terms of the use of the track. That's not a planning issue, it's a land ownership issue. But I think that we can ask people to talk to each other and resolve their differences. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I know I'm not here, I'm just here as a speaker tonight, but as the local councillor, I've visited the site quite a lot throughout my life. I've also been and met with both teams and know the site really well and know that the clubhouse is in desperate need of being I was just going to say, I do know that both the cricket team and the football team would actually be in support of the road safety changes to the main road, and that's a major concern of myself running a road safety campaign too. So I will speak with the applicants and try and support that. But I do share the concerns, and but I do think that it's a really good facility, and the improvements that have already been made, I think it can be really successful.
Thank you. Members, ladies first, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a fantastic opportunity. I mean, I've been to see what the facilities are like, and they are absolutely dreadful. And yes, it's right. Some of the teams will not be able to play on that site till those facilities are upgraded. And the fact that they've got funding for it, that refurbishment needs to go ahead without any delay.
they just need to get going with it. This is, we're short of football resource within North Warwickshire, and this is a really good opportunity to make sure that, that one is sustained. And I'm a bit confused by what Mr. Brown said. So I understand that the noise management survey, is that we call it, that's fine, and I understand the applicant would be happy with that. I don't know whether we can do this. Can we leave the other conditions till we've got that and we can see what's allowed and what time it's allowed as that drops out of that survey? Because that would make it easier then to have something that everybody's happy with. I'm not sure that we can condition the liaison group, but we can certainly recommend the liaison group. And I think we would all do that. It's good to get with the neighbours and, if we can. So I would like to recommend approval, but I've just got a question mark about the conditions.
I think the conditions do what we were looking for, Councillor Bell. They talk about the agreement of the revised route plan. So Mr. Brown, my view is that they already do what.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just to help Councillor Bell, once we get, if we do get the report under condition 7, then obviously that, as I said, will influence condition 3 and other activities. But I mean, there's no reason why the applicant shouldn't then vary condition 3 and result of condition 7. So that opportunity for the applicant is still there, and whether that is from the applicant's own volition or whether it's through discussions with the planning officers and environmental health officers, it doesn't matter. The condition 3 can be varied.
Okay, no, I'm happy with that.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think this is a really interesting one because it's one of those planning applications that's straying off into many other things. Actually, the roadway and the highways, whilst a concern, a valid concern, by all means, Councillor Jackson, speak to the county councillor about the highways piece, but it's not a planning consideration for me. The planning consideration is about the building and what's being asked for and those conditions. So I think whilst we understand and can encourage people to liaise and talk to each other, it's not really a planning consideration.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, as Councillor Watson said, a bit of a conundrum because I was making notes here that while minded to approve the extension of the upgrade, etc., I then saw this was versus, as previous speakers had said, it's a private road. And there was one actual mention that, well, we could gate it off, so thus preventing them from using the actual area, which I'm seeing from legal that is not possible, which I hope it isn't. But I do welcome if Councillor Jackson is talking about talking to them, as we mentioned about, and I know it's not part of what we're approving tonight, but it does need at some point for both people to talk about, both parties have a discussion about the maintenance of the track and traffic calming measures to enable this to go forward. And I'm very grateful for Councillor Bell's comments as well, and to Mr. Brown for the discussion on the conditions as well. So I do welcome this.
Councillor Hogbin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second Councillor Bell's recommendation for granting this application. There is a new councillor in the chamber, so there will be one person shocked at what I'm going to say. This is for you, Susan. I'm a grassroots football coach for girls football.
No.
I don't mention it very often, as you can tell by all my colleagues. So I just want to speak. I mean, I've been to Haunchwood. I've got my children's friends play for Haunchwood. My daughter's been training up there, and I'm an Anstey Common kid myself. So this is somewhere I've always been since I was a child. And just thinking about it, when was the last time you decorated your houses? It wasn't in 1980. The facilities stink. It's old, it's dated, it's no longer the benefit that it probably once was in 1980 when it first got built. Just looking at a few of the objections as well. With these grassroots hubs, and I mean, all credit to the Community and Environment Board for getting where they've got with this whole pavilion. It's really beneficial to our local community. It reduces antisocial behaviour. It reduces teen suicide. It keeps parents busy, constantly dropping their children off left, right, and centre, and make sure they have no money to spend on anything else apart from football routes. Grassroots football for girls has doubled in the last 7 years. That is just a mark on how far grassroots has come in, and we do it for the girls. I am fully in support of this application, all the work that's been done behind it. Thank you for the clarity on it. But just to remind the board that this is for the planning application, as I've been reminded myself, might I add, for the extension of the pavilion and its relative conditions. Thank you.
Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Chair. In strict terms, then our job is to decide whether they should be allowed to build this new facility. My view is yes. I see nothing to object to this at all. I'm happy to support it. With regard to extraneous matters, a liaison between the two sides can only help. I would also have thought that if they got the site from the coal board 50 years ago, by now they'd have a legal right of way across that land. But I'm not a lawyer. I would be surprised if they hadn't.
Ownership by encroachment.
What if they've been doing it?
I think we should avoid trying to become lawyers. The world has enough lawyers as it is without you two joining in.
My final comment is on the conditions. And if we can keep conditions to an absolute minimum, I think that's only the best thing. They've been operating for 50 years without any conditions.
Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got no doubts about the need to recommend the planning permission personally. It's an excellent facility and clearly is run by very well-intentioned people, and they're doing a great job. I also was incredibly impressed by the reasonable approach of the spokespeople from the home residential there. It seems to me that, you know, that there are essentially two sets of very well-intentioned people, very reasonable people who've got an issue to solve about access and use of the drive, which has got absolutely nothing to do with us and can't actually be any consideration for us in any shape or form. It just isn't there. So, you know, we don't rule the world. We don't rule the drive. And we just have to accept that. And there we go. I really do hope these two sets, very well intentioned and reasonable people, can get themselves together and come to a very happy solution, because there's clearly one to be reached. And that's you know, yeah. But I can't say that I have any reservations about supporting the new development. Will you, Chair?
So I think after I have one proposal, which is the recommendation be granted as printed in the programme. Are there any other alternative suggestions? Could I just go back then to the recommendation in front of it? Because I do have, I think, based on the conversation we've had, I think there should be, whilst it can't form any requirement, there should be an informative which strongly recommends that there is a resolution to the issues that we've talked about or heard about, and that a liaison group should be established between the local residents and the club. And I'd like an informative that perhaps, you know, I know we're going to talk about in the future what the conditions are, but that the our environmental health officer helps the applicant to understand what might be possible to mitigate noise, to help them overcome concerns and design out future nuisance. Either of those, I think, are things that we can require, but we can ask for. Anything to add, Mr. Brown?
Chair, just on that, could we encourage our local councillor to be the go-between possibly for these two?
Oh, I
Great
should have been clear
groups.
that I received.
She's volunteered.
And she's volunteered to come with me.
Ordinarily, the best liaison groups are those chaired by the local member. Who then gets
Exactly.
punched by both sides, yes.
I did agree.
So, members, you have that proposed in front of you. Are there any other recommendations? If not, can I move, sorry, I should ask, is the proposed and seconder happy with the informatives that I talked about?
Yes.
Yeah, so all those in favour of that? Thank you very much. Remaining members of the public, you are more than welcome to stay with us. You've been with us all this time, but did you have to play football with members, agenda items, appeal updates, Mr. Brown, anything?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Thank goodness. Anything to add, members? Opposed?
That's Grove Lane, is it? Grove Lane, it's in the report.
It is Grove Lane.
Double check.
Shows he's been reading.
I just thought it would be renamed after the former Secretary of State.
No.
So it's been proposed and seconded, but we note it, those in favour. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 7, anything to add to your report?
No, Mr. Chairman, this is any comments that the members may have.
Members, I'd like to take 7 and 8 and I think 9 together. I think the 3 of them, if you are happy. I mean, I'm broadly happy with what Mr. Brown's saying on 7 and 8. I think 9 is a bit of work. And if you wouldn't mind setting a working group of the group leaders on planning to further consider what further responses should be made. I'm content with where we are, but I just think these are material changes to it. Councillor Fowler, then Councillor Watson.
Sorry, Chair, I just think that's an excellent plan and second that.
Councillor Watson.
Not to make a general comment on those consultations, I think just for point, there is a concern that actually it's taken away democratic process from the planning application. And I just think we should note that because it is, delegating authority away from this board and almost making this board obsolete, which I think is a concern.
Not a concern, it's a certainty.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a democratic concern.
That's Hayfield.
Is this working group part of this speeding up process that took me about it, Chair?
Given that it's 9:30, I think you could do with a bit of speaking up. Are we all content to note 9 and have that work? Yeah, thank you very much. And anything to add on 9 before we've done it?
Only, Mr. Chairman, that the consultation deadline is the end of July, so the working group would have to speed itself up.
They'll speed themselves up on Friday afternoon. Are we all happy with that? All those in favour? Thank you very much. I now move agenda item 10, which is the exclusion of the public. Thank you all.
There's a member of the public that hanging out.
Can't go till I get to this page, this spot where I get chucked down. That's why I'm stuck in.
Do you later, Ian?
No, you won't, not tonight.
Have we turned off the recording device? Thank you. Members, I move agenda item 11.
Second.
All those in favour?